Welcome to the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, March 29th, 2022. Please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 2475 and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means and in person. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Tune into PAC TV, government cable access channels, Comcast 15 and Verizon 47, and watch the meeting as it is aired. Or watch the meeting live on PAC TV website at pactv.org. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner. In person at Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street in the 1820 courtroom. Remote participation, please go to the town website under the Select Board page and click on the Zoom webinar registration box, or simply contact our admin, Chris Badeau.
Thank you, Mrs. Cavaco. Please join the board at this time for a moment of silence for our town clerk, Pearl Sears, who passed Friday evening. Thank you. Does any of the board want to have a comment on Pearl? I know Betty has something she'd like to read, but on Betty, Mrs. Cavaco?
Sure. Pearl Sears was the first female clerk in our 400-year history. She was fun, caring, energetic, and a dedicated individual with a positive attitude and a smile that could light up a room, if not the entire town hall. Her colleagues, both past and present, have nothing but kind words to say for Pearl. She earned a reputation of being the problem solver in the face of challenges and led with a sound and calming voice that all admired. The respect she gained through her years of dedicated service to the town of Plymouth is only overshadowed by the love of her friends and family have for her. To fellow friends, colleagues, and Plymouth residents, let us all strive to keep the name of Pearl Sears alive. As a community, we are better to have known her. Personally, Pearl's spark will never fade. Her smile will be with me forever. Her kindness will always be remembered, and her bell will ring eternally. Rest in the sweetest of peace and love, Pearl. You were such a gift to all. We started a GoFund, and it's actually on many of the social media sites for Pearl's son. Pearl took care of him. He's an adult with some medical issues. And he needs our help right now. So there is a link, and I know the town clerk's office, and this is the town clerk's office over here that were Pearl's comrades. And if people could maybe, take that and hopefully be able to donate so we can help her son out, because he's, he as well as the rest of the family are not really that good right now, so.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, thank you.
I don't know if anyone over there has anything to say? No?
No?
Anna? Anna, do you want to go to the podium so everyone can hear you?
Thank you, Chairman Quintel, Vice Chair Cavaco, members of the board, Mr. Brindisi. My name is Anna Mesner. I am the acting town clerk. I'd like to say a few words about Pearl Sayers, our town clerk. As many of you know, Pearl cared deeply about people. She cared even more about her community, about her town. She was committed to her work here with the town of Plymouth. She was very honored to be the first woman to serve as town clerk. She was an inspiration to many of us, and she rose to the occasion. For some of us, she was also a mentor and a good friend. We are saddened but honored to be here tonight, the town clerk's office, and I know that all of her colleagues and friends are also pleased to be here in support of her. We will miss her smile, her kind words, her positive attitude, professionalism, and most of all, her friendship. I thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to move on to the public hearing for Sam Diego's. In accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held remotely or in person at Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street, Plymouth, Massachusetts, on Tuesday, March 29th, 2022 at 6 p.m. to consider the application for an alteration of premises from Sam Diego's East Incorporated, doing business as Sam Diego's Mexican Cookery and Bar, holder of an annual all-alcohol restaurant license, 51 Main Street, Richard Sorensen, manager. Description of premises is as follows. First floor, kitchen, bar, table service. Second floor, bar, lounge, basement, kitchen storage, and receiving. On the first floor, entrance, exit on west side of building, and one entrance, exit on the east side of the building. Outdoor patio on the west side of the building, to include 11 tables with chairs at each table. Applicant seeks to add outdoor dining tables on the sidewalk and in parking space, per the license agreement from the town. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter should plan to attend this meeting. I now declare the hearing open. And Chris, is there anybody here from Sam Diego's? Oh, there is, Richard. Good morning, Mr. Sorensen. Good afternoon. Mr. Sorensen, are you there?
I am.
All righty. Do you have anything you'd like to say at this time before we get started?
No, I just
Okay.
thank you for the opportunity.
All right, let's see what happens here. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Nobody trying to dial in or anything, right? Okay, at this time, I declare this hearing closed and bring it back to the board.
Couple of questions.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Sorensen. Charlie
Yes.
Bletzer. Yes, how many tables? It looks like 9 or 10 tables out there. How many
We
seats
have,
total?
total number of seats will be 24.
Okay, so it's under the 29. Just an observation, during last year and the year before, I noticed that the sidewalks seemed to be blocked, very cluttered. I know you already have the outdoor patio, and my concern is that hopefully you're going to stay ADA compliant out there. Now, again, I know you need it to succeed business-wise, but we need that sidewalk for our pedestrians, and it has to be ADA compliant.
Yeah, I understand. I saw the rules and regs that you sent out with us.
Okay,
And we measured out, and there's 5 feet. And we won't have umbrellas out there because we need 8 feet cleared going to the top. So we have discontinued using umbrellas on those tables on the sidewalk. so we will meet all the requirements for people having a clear walkway.
That's great to hear, because looking at your plan, I was just concerned with that, so, and, Mr. Helm and his committee, I'm sure, are going to be watching what's going on, so, but I wish you luck this season, so, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Helm?
Mr. Sorensen, I noticed on your street plan that
Yes.
At the one side where you have two tables by the driveway alongside of the takeout parking, you have two tables with 80 inches between the tables. When you're calculating 80 inches, are you including a seat being at each of those tables in that 80-inch margin?
No, the
Okay.
seats will be on the sides.
Okay,
Those are going to be, those two tables will only have two people sitting at them on each side, not on the,
okay, cool.
not, will be working.
Thank you.
Yep.
Waiting for a motion from the board?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Helm. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
In accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held remotely or in person at Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street, Plymouth, Mass. On Tuesday, March 29, 2022 at 6:05 p.m. to consider the application for an alteration of premises from Roll Street Tavern Incorporated, doing business as Roll Street Tavern, holder of an annual all-alcohol restaurant license, 35 Main Street, Unit 1, Jeffrey Zietz, manager. Description of the premises is as follows. 2 floors for a total of 4,400 square feet. First floor, 2 rooms, walk-ins, liquor, closet, and prep area. Second floor is 4 rooms, kitchen, dining area, men's and ladies' rooms, with 2 entrances, exits. Applicant seeks to add outdoor seating areas on the sidewalk, in the parking space, and behind the restaurant per the license agreement from the town. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter should plan to attend this meeting. I now declare this meeting open. I see Mr. Zietz is here. Is there anything you'd like to say at this time, sir?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the outside seating this year.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Peter Silva, and I'm the owner of 2931 Main Street, right next door. I'm all for businesses trying to get street parking or seating, but I was unaware last time when it was granted to them. They had asked my tenant at the time, and she didn't care. COVID was going on. We're trying to help each other. But now, since then, I have a new, also rented out the other side, and now their street parking in a parking space was in front of my store. It wasn't in front of theirs, and parking is terrible, as you know, downtown for these spaces. So I would be opposed to them taking the space in front of our building.
Is that what this,
Well, one of the things is that they were approved for, or as I was told, that they were approved for outdoor seating in front of my store and in the rear of their store. So they had 2 outdoor seating areas approved last year. I don't know about this year.
Harry, you familiar with this area, with this application?
I'm not familiar with the application,
Well, it-
and I'm not,
I am,
but,
Mr. Chairman. Can I ask you a question?
A
It says
question.
two in front of Roll Street Tavern.
Right, well,
That's what this,
but also,
Yeah.
there are two, they're requesting two space parklet.
yeah, I see that.
Okay, that would be part, and that's in front of the craft beer
Okay.
cellars,
which is my store, yeah.
which is your store. Now, your question is about,
Well, whether or not they're
Tables in
going to
the
be
back.
allowing that, I heard something about they're not doing the one-way this year. So I don't know how that's going to affect anything, but I just think it's kind of unfair for their outdoor seating to be in front of our stores.
okay, now, is the proposed two space parklet in front of the craft beer cellars and this new business, or is it just in front of the
So
craft beer cellars?
the parking space is in front of both, and in front of both 29 and 31. And then in front of that parking space is the loading zone, which is in front of the
Which is-
Roll Street,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm just looking for, another parking space not to be filled in front of our stores, that's all. And it's really not in front of their store.
Question.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Charlie. And then bid.
Mr. Zietz, question, Charlie Blitzer. Do you still,
Yes.
is Park Plymouth, do you still in agreement with Park Plymouth to have the seating out back, the outdoor seating out back?
We do. The reason why we had the seating last year in front with craft beer sellers, and I'm aware that the new pet store in there as well, and I most certainly want to be a good neighbor. We don't have the ability to have the seating in front of our restaurant ourselves because of the loading zone that's there. And so that was what happened. The town did not want to lose the loading zone for all the businesses on the street. The backside seating, quite frankly, we have the allowable use with Park Plymouth, but it's not for us, the value really of the outside seating is in the front with everybody else on the street and creating the atmosphere, to have a lot of walker-bys and so forth and so on to make it a vibrant street for all the businesses associated on Main Street. And that's where last year the majority of the people chose to seat with us whenever available.
How many seats are out in the Park Plymouth area?
So the way we had it laid out this year was in the parklet spot, we would have had 3 tables with 4 seats, so 12 seats. We would have had two tops, which for 4 seating directly in front of the restaurant on the sidewalk, a couple small tables, and 3 tables in back of the restaurant with 4 seats.
So 12 seats in the back of the restaurant?
Correct.
That's it for me.
So the reason the tables are over there basically is because of the loading zone. Do you think that Park Plymouth might move the loading zone over? There's nowhere to put it?
Could we encroach
I
a
mean,
little bit?
we can ask them, we can request. What do you think, Charlie?
I can't
Quite
answer.
honestly, my preference would be, I mean, if I don't want to hurt anyone else's business, and my preference would be to have the tables honestly right in front of the store. It was just a safety concern last year and an operational concern last year.
But we also, Mr. Zietz, I mean, we want the restaurants to succeed, obviously, but the retail stores are very important too. And that's why the sidewalks are important, and I get where they're coming from. People They want people to be able to pull up to their store, go in for a few minutes, make a purchase, and then get out. So I understand where Mr. Silver is coming from. And also the craft beer store, I'm surprised that somebody from there is not here tonight, you know, going against this. I mean, it's nothing against your restaurant. You have a great restaurant, but, you know, with the seating
it's-
out back and you get the seating, you do have some seating in front. You know, we have to be fair, I think, to all businesses, so, you know, and that's why Mr. Silver is here tonight, so.
I think last year with craft beer sellers, quite honestly, we played off well together. You know, people would see and eat there and shop as well. And I think it's for the vibrancy of the street. And it's a really important factor for us to be competitive with the other restaurants on the street, quite honestly. And anything I could do to create a, you know, joint shopping situation with the store, I'm a supporter of their store. So anything I could do, it just would be a shame for us not to be on equal footing with the other restaurants. And that's really where and create the vibrancy on that side of the street. You know, to attract the people to walk down there, the foot traffic, to have people go into the stores.
Mrs. Cavaco?
Derek, so that loading zone is pretty large in that area. How much space would a table take to encroach, like, on that loading zone just a little bit? It can't be more than like 6 feet. So is that a possibility?
Are you suggesting to move the tables, if we're looking at the diagram that was presented in the packet, move the tables more to the right, more towards the loading zone?
Yes. And that way, you would be,
Yeah, I would be fine. I mean, you're right. I mean, there's probably the last 6 or 8 feet, nobody ever pulls up that far to the parking spaces.
Right.
So there's at least 8 feet of dead zone there.
look at all the people that would be happy. He'd be happy, they'd be happy, happy everywhere.
Yeah, I definitely think we can look at the placement of the tables, and I can, certainly I would want to talk to the fire department, make sure it's safe. Then we can work with the DPW to make sure that the table placement is appropriate, and then try to figure out some parking out front of the craft beer cellar.
Absolutely, and I'm willing to work, you know, I want to see them succeed too, so.
So could we move that, could we move the licenses as long as there's approval with the contingencies from, you know, fire and you
DPW.
know, DPW in agreement with Mr. Silva?
Does that work?
Mr.
That
Chairman,
works for me.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vatsa?
I think I'd get Park Plymouth involved too, let them know get them involved too.
Sure,
I
I'll
think
do
that'd
that.
be important, so.
Does
And they'll
Park Plymouth
and come up with a solution, so if everybody's satisfied, that'd be good.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
So that motion, or do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the outdoor seating for Roll Street Tavern with the contingencies that Mr. Brandisi mentioned for police, fire, fire, DPW, and Park Plymouth.
Yeah, can I second that? And just to comment on,
Absolutely.
so I think this plan takes up 2 parking spots. I think to kind of give them a goal of where we would kind of draw the line and say you've been successful, they could get 1 spot back and only take 1 spot, then I think that would be a fair split. And so if for some reason you can't go into the loading zone for I'm just hypothetically an amendment here, that they would only get 1 spot's worth of tables, which might only be 1 table. But we preserve 1 spot, and then if they can get a little loading zone area, and it's all passed by public safety, then that can go farther that way. But they only get 1 spot maximum.
Any more discussion or questions? All those in
If
favor?
there's,
All those in favor?
Quickly a question. Of what is what we are voting on, including Patrick's caveat about the one space?
Well, yeah.
We're leaving it up to Derek and the town boards to make sure it's safety, and if they meet all that and Peter is happy, then it'll go. If not,
Okay, well, my question would be, what if they find out that taking part of the loading zone is not safe and is not an option? I mean, Patrick, I believe, was suggesting that if that's not the case, then one of the two spots could be, is that what you were suggesting, Patrick?
Yeah, so they could go forward, because I think it's supposed to start this weekend, so.
Mr. Brandisi?
Yeah, through the chair, I think the best course of action would be to meet with the abutters and the restaurant owner, along with Park Plymouth and Fire, and just do a site visit. We can all stand out there, look at the space, see what's safe, see how many tables we can get in there, at the same time trying to accompany the request to have one parking space. So if you can give us a chance to work on it, I think we can try to satisfy all parties that are involved.
May I make a suggestion, Mr. Brindisi, that included in this group is not just Mr. Silva, but the two store owners? Because we have not heard from them. We have not heard from the owner of the craft beer cellar or the owner of, I believe it is the pet, the pet bakery? Dog bakery.
So the dog bakery is my wife's.
Okay.
And I'm here also representing craft beer, because Tatum knows about it. Tatum's my tenant.
Okay, yeah.
As well as, yeah, so we're all
Okay.
together on this.
All right.
You know, we want to work with them, but just
Okay,
trying not to give up that.
cool.
Parking.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous upon meeting those requirements. Public hearing for the aquaculture licenses. Derek, that will be, who's representing the aquaculture? Is it Chad? No, he's here. We have one for Rick Vale and one for DeBratz.
So I'm just here if the board had any questions. Both of these sites are in full compliance as far as the reporting and the use.
Okay,
And these transfers are consistent with two previous transfers we've had in the past.
okay, and it's by the coordinates, I guess you call them, on the 2 pages listed, one for each site, right?
Yes. So both of these sites are existing sites within the aquaculture development zone.
Okay,
It was Tara Ald is for, that's a transfer for Cam Dobratz, and Jim O'Shea is the transfer for Rick Veo. Both Tara and Jim have been an absolute pleasure to work with over the years. They've been doing it for quite some time, and they've always complied with all the rules and regulations.
okay. Can we take both of these together, or would you rather us do them separate? Does it matter?
It's up to you.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to move as a group for Mr. Veo and Mr. DeBraz for an aquaculture license.
Second by Mr. Blitzer. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Cottage smokestack. We're going to have a discussion on this. It was brought to our attention, I think it was last week, a week before, a week and a half, it was inspected, and Mr. Mayo's here, so good evening and welcome. Nick, if you could just walk us through what's going on, so the people watching and the people that are concerned know what really took place and where we're at and what our options are, I guess.
Sure, thank you for having me tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Nick Mayo, I'm the building commissioner. A couple weeks ago now, the owner of the tower had given me a phone call asking about the process with that tower.
Can you
the
speak up a
smokestack.
little?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you not hear me? Is that better? So a couple weeks ago.
Just a quick question. How are you people in the back? Are you able to hear this? Okay,
Yell.
yell.
Is this better?
Yeah, you really have to speak into the microphone or the speakers don't pick you up at all.
Okay, thank you. So a few weeks back, the owner of the tower, Joe Giannetti, gave me a phone call asking about the process for future development there, and if the tower were to need to come down, and what that process would be, what he would be subject to. We do have a local ordinance through our historic district that requires any structure or building that's 75 years old or older that's subject to our demolition delay. The caveat to that is if I determine that a building needs emergency demolition. At that time, it was still undecided whether that building was going to be subject to that demolition delay bylaw. The owner mentioned to me that he had a report produced back in September of '21 that I had not yet seen or received. So he provided that at that time. I reviewed that report. That report was produced by inspection, and a report was performed by a chimney company, a masonry contractor. After discussion with council and reviewing this and some discussion with some of my counterparts, I made the decision that while that inspection was not produced by a local engineer, a structural engineer with what we call a stamp, certified in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it was basically determined that there's enough level of competency there. One, that they're a professional in the construction industry, but two, they're a professional in that type of construction, okay, brick masonry construction, that I'm compelled to take some form of action. So at that time, a cease and desist was sent out to abate a dangerous situation, dangerous conditions, and that's where the fencing came in, the 6-foot chain link fence. And part of that order, this is all through the 780 CMR, the state building code, which is under my authority here in town. I requested that a structural evaluation was done from a structural engineer and to follow up within 7 days with that report. That's what the owner did. After receiving that report, I reviewed it, again, went over with it with some of my counterparts, the other inspectors in the office, town council, and the decision unfortunately was made that the structure unfortunately needs to come down. Part of this decision, just so you're aware, we don't take into consideration the cost that it would take to restore the structure or even the cost to remove it. It's not cost-driven. It's simply whether the structure is in threat of collapse. Part of this decision was also based on the probability of collapse if someone were to go in there to try to preserve it. So it's highly likely that if someone goes in there to even stage it off around the building and actually anchor to the building with their staging to try to repoint it, remove the chimney cap, any of those types of process that you would typically have to do, it's likely that it would come down while they were working on it. So that's really part of this discussion. And it's clear, in my opinion, and I guess that's the one that matters in this case, based on the engineer's report, the masonry contractor, and the visual report, the visual pictures and the drone footage that I had, that it's long overdue. Something should have been done with this tower quite some time ago, and unfortunately it wasn't, and this is where we're at with it now. It's unfortunate, but this is where we're at with it. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm sure you do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Liddy?
So, as you stated, something should have been done long ago. Obviously, it's a very historical piece of Plymouth's history. It's a landmark. It's a nautical landmark. And are you saying that there is absolutely no way that we can save the tower?
What I'm telling you is the current condition of the tower is in threat of collapse, and it has to be demolished. It could be rebuilt, but the preservation of it is not feasible. Of what's currently existing there, it's not feasible. It's either in jeopardy of collapse in its entirety or a very large portion of it.
So do we have, and that would be the owners of that development that would take that down. Now,
Correct.
do we have any estimate for what that cost would be? I know that the town manager and I had a conversation, and it was not an official conversation, it was just in passing to a mason. And, you know, they believe that it could be restored, but, you know, you're the building commissioner, so I'm wondering if maybe CPC, I know Mr. Cohan is here, I don't know where he is.
I think he's in the back.
Oh, here he is. Is there anything that we could do, you know, working with Mr. Genetti, to the town, you know, to try and do something with this? I understand, you know, this mason suggested that, you know, putting staging around the outside would, you know, maybe help a little bit, take down 60 or so feet and rebuild from there. So I'm just, it's, like I said, it's a landmark of our town, and we've gotten quite a bit of emails and communications that, you know, the folks in the town want us to save it at all costs because of its historical meaning. So I don't know, Bill, if you want to come up and give us a little chat? Like quick? Like a quick chat,
Yeah,
Bill.
quick. So, Bill Cohan with the Community Preservation Committee. We learned of this a few weeks ago, and I've been able to reach out to Mass Historical Preservation Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Historical Society. What I'm trying to track down right now is looking at possibly having a building conservation specialist look at the stack and prepare a report for us. It's called a historical structures report. I am in contact with Lynn Spencer with Spencer Sullivan Vogel. They've done reports for us in the past on the Meeting House on 1749. They're working with us right now on the spire. So they're active in our community. They're well aware of this smokestack. I'm going to be meeting with them tomorrow, if it's okay. I'm going to reach out to the Genetti family to see if we can be on site to take a look, because the next question really is, how quick can we get back an analysis of the structural integrity of this stack? Obviously, the next step would be figuring out, can it be saved? What would have to happen? Once we have that documentation from the historical preservationist, we can get an independent cost estimate of what that might cost. But it sounds like, from what your building inspector is telling you, and what the Genetti family has conducted in bringing in engineers to say that the stack is in a very precarious situation. Time is of the essence. So our intention is to be out there tomorrow to meet with a building conservation specialist to see how long a report might take. We're looking at focusing on the structural integrity of the object as outlined in the engineering report that you all have, that the family has provided. So that's the track that we're on. I think in the next 24 hours, I'll be able to report back to the Board of Selectmen in the Town Inspectional Services and the Genetti family where we're on in terms of having something that they could look at before they took it down. So at least when we go to deal with the situation, we have all the information on the table to make a rational decision about does it have to come down, must it come down? Those questions should be looked at after we compile some information. And we're willing to go forward and do that.
Thank you.
The only thing, Bill, is we're gonna have to do it like in a timely fashion because
Right.
it's
So the plan is
unsafe
to-
and,
Yep.
you know, like the building inspector says, you know. I mean, I'm no engineer, but I think the first thing that has to happen is the concrete has to come off the top
Right.
of it.
So our intention is to get the historical preservationist out there tomorrow to
Okay,
look
so you
at it,
could
to advise
act
us,
quick?
so I can come back and let people know what they're telling us at that point.
All right. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you. And just a question for Nick, and based on the reports that you've seen, if there's follow-up reports that might have more detail or filling in some data that you might not have, is there some condition that could come back where you'd say your statement right now, or to do any work on it, or to try and preserve it, might actually cause it to collapse? Could that be changed based on a future report here, or is that based on your experience? Because I think you have to sign off on it either way.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not likely. You know, I have two valid sources that have already done a thorough review on this. One of them is here tonight. If you have any questions for them, the structural engineer. I've already issued an order that the thing needs to come down by noon of the following day of the receipt of the order. So, meaning it's already coming down. Unfortunately, I don't get any pleasure out of this. So, just so we're on the same page here. But and that was advised from council as well. So when I did go over that with council, it's you know, it's not a decision to be taken lightly for sure, and it's definitely unfortunate, but it's really something that needs to happen.
Mr. Bledsoe? Then Mr. Helm?
Yeah, Nick, yeah, I know it has a lot of historic value, but right now we have our building commissioner who's put it on the record that it's a liability, and my biggest fear is if somebody gets hurt trying to repair this, or even do it, you know, going up and looking at it, if somebody gets hurt, you know, he's already on the record saying that it's going to collapse. So I think we have a serious liability issue right now, so we have to take that in mind. So.
Mr. Mayo, I could not hear your time frame that you gave. You gave an order for its demolition, and what was the time frame?
So the order, that's a great question. The order is consistent with how the law requires me to handle this, so it's noon of the following day of the receipt of the order. So the reality is it's supposed to already be to the ground.
So once you issued the order, they have till noon of the following day?
That's standard through the building code and master general law. I believe it's chapter 143, section 6 through 12, this is the process. When you have an emergency situation like this, an unsafe structure, that's how the law works, and that's how the building code pushes you to
another
do it.
question. This may actually be for, you mentioned there's an engineer here. It may be for them. Is there a possibility that the chimney could be deconstructed, the bricks saved, and reconstructed?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that. My interest is for the structure to come down. It is absolutely feasible for it to be rebuilt. Whether it's the same bricks or new bricks, I don't know at this time, but I would imagine that the demolition method would come into play with that. I do know, I believe the owner is currently working. The situation is unique enough in the type of construction and the structure that it is. It's not like it's a house where they can get any contractor to just come in and get the thing to the ground and demolish it. So they are putting out some feelers. They have a couple companies, I believe, giving them prices on them early this week. As of currently, they're working on getting a contractor who specializes in demolition. So we can ask them. I can certainly go over that with them. I'm going to be asking them for a plan myself and the fire department. We're going to make sure we know how it's going to be demolished. Basically, for if they want to implode it, that would require some permitting through the fire department. I don't think that's a likely scenario, but it's an option. There's going to be some planning required for us to be aware of to make sure that the site is secure, they have a perimeter there for safety purposes, just to demolish it anyway.
Sure, and I understand that a brick-by-brick type demolishment would be more expensive than just imploding it. So I have a question for Mr. Cohen now.
Sure.
Mr. Cohen, as you meet with the various people, can you pursue an answer to the question that I posed? Can it be demolished and rebuilt from the original bricks?
Yes, that can be examined as a possibility.
Okay.
That's all the only thing I'm offering today from the perspective of the Community Preservation Committee is that we look into and talk to a historical building specialist to look at this as a possible examination for these things that I mentioned. In the end, this belongs to the Cottage. The Cottage can take it down. There's nothing stopping them from doing that, whether it is deemed dangerous or not. It's their object, and we don't have any control over it. We're just offering to work within the time frame of the Building Inspectional Services Office and the family that owns the chimney to see if there's any chance that we can get in there and make an analysis. If anything, just to document what is coming down so future generations can look at a document and see what we took down. But obviously during its demolition, which it sounds like it's going to happen, that these materials could be reclaimed and repurposed or reused in some manner somewhere else. So, we will continue to do what we can in the limited time frame that we have.
Yeah, I just, on a personal basis, as a resident of Plymouth, I'm not a boater, and I know it has a significance to the boating community. But I do know that when I leave Duxbury, which is very often, and come down Bay Road and look across the bay and see the smokestack there, I think of it as home. It's a good feeling. The smokestack matters, and whatever we can do to try to, obviously, I don't think we can preserve it, but if it could be demolished in a logical way and then rebuilt within, obviously that would have to be costed out. I think it would be a worthwhile endeavor to look into.
Yeah, and in others, it's not unheard of to save a stack of this nature. In Manchester, New Hampshire, Lowell, Springfield, Worcester, they've gone to great extents to save their industrial history, and this is a landmark. But in the end, the town of Plymouth has limited control over the preservation of this. It requires cooperation and opportunities, but at this time, it's limited in the time frame that we have. We'll do what we can to at least document and provide as much information. But in the end, it is an example of the town of Plymouth really needs to start to prepare and strengthen its historical preservation bylaws. This is an opportunity to step back and to realize that we have very little control of the buildings around us, and we should look at that, because this is not the only building that's threatened in Plymouth right now. We have the marina on the waterfront that is from 1857, the Plymouth Foundry, which is also under the same condition. It is owned by someone who has the right to take it down, and hopefully we can work with them to find some compromise to that. But when it comes to historical preservation, if you don't own the object, it's very difficult to preserve it, so that it's a lesson to be learned.
Thank you.
At this time, excuse me, I'd like to open it up to the audience because I believe some people are here to speak to this. So is there anybody out there that would like to?
I would like to speak on the property manager at Cottage, if you don't mind. I'd like to make a little statement.
Sure, come on up. Just identify yourself up here so everybody hears you.
Good evening, I am Kristen Ligori. I am the property manager at Cottage Commerce Center, and I'm here tonight to discuss the demolition of the Cottage smokestack. This all came about recently during a land survey and evaluation when Best Chimney Services was brought out to inspect the integrity of the structure. With the use of drone imaging, they were able to get a close look and realize the amount of damage along the banded area. A structural engineer who we will hear from a little bit later, I believe, further verified the findings and identified that significant deficiencies were in place throughout the entire length of the smokestack. Their findings and the extent of the deterioration was totally unexpected. At this time, the building and fire departments have deemed the smokestack to be a public hazard and the property is quickly taking action to comply with town ordinances. We are disappointed to see the removal of such a familiar and beloved structure within our Cottage property. Throughout the entirety of the Cottage development, the owners have made it a priority to have waterfront access for the community, as it had previously been walled off for years, or as my head of maintenance said, decades. It is now open to the public and can be enjoyed by all residents of North Plymouth. At this time, the removal of the smokestack is necessary to ensure the safety of all that come to the waterfront by the pier. As soon as the weather improves, many from the community will come to enjoy the area, and so time is of the essence. The smokestack is 210 feet tall, consists of approximately 500,000 bricks, and has been a beacon of comfort in the community since 1899. Property ownership has plans to memorialize it and will continue to pay homage to both the smokestack and the significance of the Plymouth Cottage Company, with its importance to Plymouth and maritime history. We will continue to fully support the Plymouth Cottage Museum, as we have done for years, and will also create visible references throughout the property to inform visitors of the dynamic and deep roots at Cottage. I spoke with a number of demolition contractors already. I have talked to them about retaining the brick as much as possible. So that part has already been in discussion. Bill, I'm happy to meet with you tomorrow. I've got my card for you. And if there are any questions, this has all come about very quickly, so there's a lot of unknowns at this point, but I'm certainly happy to answer what I can.
Thank you. No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cavaco.
So a friend of mine just sent me a message who's a structural engineer and has done quite a bit of work for the town. And his statement to me was that chimney is shown on the town of Plymouth's oldest boundary map markers. It was used as a triangular station. You, the selectmen, are the caretakers of perambulation markers, even if it's on private property. So I think that's something that we need to address. I don't know, Derek, who we talk to, maybe contact our legal counsel and see if that is actually the case.
Through the chair, if you don't mind. If you can forward me that message, I'd be happy to talk to council.
Perfect, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this? Mr. Lydon?
Steve Lydon, I'm a Plymouth resident, and I would hate to see this tower come down. It's been there since, I've been here 40 years, and, you know, I drive by through North Weymouth, and it is a landmark, but it's unsafe. And I would take the building inspector, that's what we hire him for, that's his job. It's been fenced off to keep people away from it. I don't know if it's safe to have people go in and do an historical study. I don't know how close they get to the building, if they have to go up, I don't know, but I don't think that would be a safe thing to do. And if something happened to these people, who would be liable? And I think it's a big risk to do that. So I would agree with the building inspector. Thank you.
Everett?
Everett Malaguti, Precinct 1, and a member of the North Plymouth Steering Committee. It is very disheartening to hear for the entire population of Plymouth, but more for the North Plymouth population that has endeared and loved this icon for decades, if not centuries. And it's basically been a part of the backdrop, part of the backdrop for Plymouth for so long. My family has had ties to it, along with a lot of other people here in this room and in the community that either worked there or had family work at that company. I also have other ties to it when my grandfather had his shoe store in the main tower building as well too, as my family had worked in there for a while. It's been basically, if that smokestack was not here in the beginning, North Plymouth would not be here today in the form that it is. That entire complex built North Plymouth. we can thank Portage for actually giving us a vibrant part of the town, a nice collective part that has its own history of immigration and everything else to that. That is the second wave that came well after the Pilgrims, but developed into the community that we have. I believe everything needs to be done and looked at regardless of the demolition order that was given in any form to preserve the structure for generations, even if it does have to be piece by piece brought down and rebuilt. I want the structure to be a part of history going forward, as well as part of a legacy for the community, if not just the North Plymouth community. And if there does have to be a memorial done to it, I would like it to be a substantial memorial, not like the little small memorials that have been done, like with the Man in the Mountain in New Hampshire and stuff like that. It needs to be a lot grander scale than that, because that is Plymouth. It's part of the entire fabric of this town, and if nothing is done with it, then North Plymouth especially has lost basically just about all of its historic character to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing no one. Thank you, Mr. Mayo. I understand the safety issues of it in your job, and I also understand Everett, and I'm with you on what it means to the people in North Plymouth. On the other hand, the Genettis have been very good neighbors. They've always done a good job, so we're asking them to try to comply with what they have there, but let's not junk it yet. Let's just take one more look. Before whatever happens, I think there's probably a day before that happens. You know, my grandparents worked there. That's where Plymouth started after they landed, pretty much. A lot of history. The thing that really bothers me about it is, why does it have to come down today now? I get it. I saw the report. I seen it. But what prompted that? Was it an inspection that was done? If it is, then, you know, they've been building there for quite a while. Or is it because it's in the way of a marina that's going to go right in front of it? These are the things I asked myself that provoked this, and, you know, if that's the reason they want it out of the way. Because until this report, I believe it was listed that that was supposed to stand. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I get the whole safety thing, and I get the thing's been issued for demolition. But my question is, was it in prior agreements that the stack would stay? And that's really my question, not the safety of it. And I believe it can be rebuilt. At least I hope it can. I know Bill told me that they've done it in Lexington and 3 other communities, so I'm going to stay positive on it. We heard your concerns. We also heard the concerns of the building inspector and town services. So let's see what happens. But I thought it needed due diligence to talk about it, just like the next item. So thank you all. If we hear anything or anything changes, we'll let you all know. Wait to hear from Bill tomorrow. Anything else from the board? Thank you. Really? Oh, they are here. Okay, next will be the County Woodlot Thoroughbred Racetrack discussion / proposal. And to give some of you a brief history of what has been happening the last couple weeks, it was a lot of, well, there's rumors every day, I guess. But the rumor was there's all this stuff going on, and nobody knew about it. And I had the press asking me, and they wanted me to make comments on it, and I can't comment on something I really didn't have the information on. So last Friday at 9 a.m., which is what I told everybody that was listening, We had a meeting in the great room. We invited most of our town staff, building, planning, conservation, public safety, DPW, state delegation. I brought as many players into the room to ask questions or might have a concern. So we heard a little bit about the proposal on Friday. After that, I told you that I would answer what I could today. However, I don't believe that all your answers or concerns will be answered today, but it's a starting point. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to, are they in here? Oh, I'm sorry. Loring, who will be starting off the conversation?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, I'm Loring Tripp. I am the Director of Planning and Community Development for Boston South Real Estate and Development, LLC. As the chairman spoke, we've been in a process over the past few months in cooperation with the Plymouth County and the commissioners to work through an RFP process, of which we were awarded this past month as one of seven people who withdrew the RFP. We were the only one that responded with the RFP in this past week. The past 2 weeks, we've been awarded that and then finalized the agreement, which will be, ratified at the end of this month. What that RFP speaks to, and I want to, just kind of lay out the actual process for the community. Yes, sir?
Lauren, if you could speak up or move the mic closer, because
sorry
it's very hard to hear in here.
I apologize. It's been a while
Can
since
you hear
I've
better
been
now?
at the podium. I'm a little rusty. So with me tonight, I just want to introduce Jim Bristol and Will Connell. They're managing members of Boston South LLC. And just, as I said, that we're in this process. And I want to explain the process because I think there's been a lot of concern that just hearing one of the proposed uses for the site has obviously garnished a little bit of attention. But I want to explain to people the process that we're going through here, and it starts with the RFP process. So now that the RFP has been awarded to us, the first step will be a 90-day due diligence on the property. So really the next 90 to 120 days will be no different than any commercial operation, in that we'll be doing the research on the site, checking all the titles, deeds, access, basically the standard due diligence that you'd find in any project. If we agree to move past that 90 days, then we then enter into a 3-year due diligence process with the county in that time that we do our planning, engineering, but most importantly, our community outreach, working with the town, the county, the state, to address all the components that looking to develop this significant piece of property entail. So we're really at the beginning of what will be probably a 3 to 4 year process in evaluating what that will be. Now, I think it's important to back up and explain what the RFP was for and why the county was looking to engage in this. The county is looking to create a permanent revenue stream to help support the services that Plymouth County for 27 communities provides for a long-term revenue stream, to create a long-term revenue stream. And, we all know the trials and tribulations of running government, and when it comes down to just taxes as a stream, it becomes always a difficult pill to swallow for the community. And I think the commissioners have really taken a forward look to see how they can monetize their asset to benefit all of the citizens of Plymouth County. And that's where we come in as a partner. And our commitment is over that 3 years to spend anywhere from $4 to $6 million to go through that evaluation process to find what these highest and best uses are. That we're here at the very beginning of this is basically one of our partners here, not here tonight, but it was one of the principals. His name is Vince Garrett. He's the current vice president of Keeneland Racetrack, a thoroughbred racetrack organization from Kentucky. He was here this past week, was able to meet with some of the local officials, and we'll be back here in the next few weeks as we work through the beginning of the process. But I can tell you that for certain, that is the one use that I can say to you tonight is one that we're bringing to the table. And we're not talking about your typical thoroughbred racing organization. Vince is one of the leading and most foremost experts on horse racing in the world. He runs a $500 million a year organization at Keeneland where they have state-of-the-art facilities. They lead the country in the humanitarian treatment of horses, in the care and protection and safety for their riders, as well as world-class facilities for conventions, entertainment, and sporting and gaming. So that is the real deal that we're talking about that we can confirm is the foundation by which the rest of what we hope to bring is a world-class sports, gaming, and entertainment center. And what that means is that we may be looking at everything from sports fields to entertainment venues, could be minor league baseball. We don't know what it is yet, or how this combination will come together. But our commitment to the county, and it's in the RFP, is that we need to look at every opportunity that might be available that will generate that revenue, that permanent revenue stream for Plymouth County moving forward. So basically, that's kind of just to give you kind of where we are in the process, that this is the beginning of a process. And it's the beginning of the end of the RFP process for us, not to be Churchill-like in saying this is the beginning of the end of the beginning. But that's really where we're at. And we're here tonight to, like I said, be transparent, upfront, quell any misinformation or misunderstanding about who we are, what's being proposed. I can tell you that we're not quite sure what the final look is, but we're looking forward to working with the town, its citizens, the state, and the county to come up with what I hope will be a successful economic engine that will promote tourism, will bring jobs, significant jobs. Just the one facility that we're talking about when in regards to thoroughbred horse racing could be in excess of 3,000 to 5,000 jobs. That's the type of, I think, opportunity that's here on the table and that we're looking to explore cooperatively with the community. So if any questions or comments between the three of us, I'm sure we could,
Any questions or comments from the board at this time? Betty, and then Charlie, and then Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. So I think one of the things that we've received several emails for and against, of course, and one of the things that some of the questions that we've received is that, they keep calling it a horse track or horse racing, but it's much more than that. And until you do your due diligence, you don't even know if it's going to be a horse track. I know that there is like testing of the ground and all those other things that you have to do. So this is the initial, this is what we want to do kind of thing, and you're just informing us, because I don't believe that the select board has jurisdiction over this property anyway. But, so this is the beginning steps of the process that you want to go through.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, Lauren. To all the, as Betty said, all the people out there, all the negative, it's just being presented tonight. First time I'm here. Okay, sorry. For all the people that we're getting a lot of negative emails, I'm just hearing about this tonight. It's the first thing that we've heard about it. And I can tell you, in the last 10 or 12 years, we've had no economic development in Plymouth. We've had none. So we have to at least listen, be open-minded, and listen to this group. You're talking thousands of jobs. You're talking, how much revenue do you anticipate, tax revenue, commercial?
We're committing to, at the higher echelon, a $500 million investment in Plymouth. And in regards to revenue, to just use Keeneland as an example, I mean, people don't realize, really where the revenue streams are with this, is they are the world's largest sales, like a Sotheby's, for thoroughbred racehorses and elite horses, with a sales annual average of $500 million a year. So that sales tax alone for Plymouth is significant, never mind the revenue based on a $500 million investment, which I believe the Director of Finance the other day did a quick calculation, would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million a year in tax revenue.
So $8 million.
The property itself.
And it's something that we need. We need to get some commercial tax revenue. They still have to go through all the boards. I mean, there's a lot of work to do before they get, you're talking probably a couple years of you're going to spend, what'd you say, $4 to $6 million just doing the studies. So, I'm going to be open-minded about this. I'm actually excited about it if this goes through the way I think. And obviously, as far as animal abuse, nobody likes that. But thoroughbred racing, they just said that these animals will be well cared for. I'm sure there'll be a lot of inspections, because they'll be under the microscope, and I'm sure the state will be inspecting the conditions of the horses. And so I just ask everybody to just be open-minded, and let's see what this group has to offer us. Thank you.
Thank you for the overview, Loring. And you said something a minute ago, or maybe just following up on Betty's comment about the nature of the next couple years of development plans. I heard when you were speaking, you said that the idea of the thoroughbred racetrack and the betting portion of that's what you're bringing to the table now. Is there any other parts of that plan that is going to be brought forward as a commitment in sort of a first phase, or is it really leading with that as the anchor, and then there might be some other maybes down the line? But what else do you foresee coming down the line if it's only the horse track to start with?
So what we have to look at, the $5 to $6 million that we're talking about investment is basically coming from the financing primarily in support of the thoroughbred horse racing, to do that analysis up front at our risk. At our risk for the next 3 years, we're going to spend the money and work through this process publicly, transparently, and honestly with this community as we move forward. But what that will do is create a catalyst by which other opportunities will present themselves. And what those can be, from getting the attention of the state and federal government for the needed traffic improvements that are needed in that area. We already know that whether this project goes forward or not, Long Pond Road and the choke point at the bridge and the need to complete the interchange already exists with or without us. Will we provide a catalyst to get that kind of investment in Plymouth? I hope we will. But in regards to the additional development that may occur, as I stated, some of the sports facilities, but we've also been in high-level discussions with other industries, two of which, one is a $12 billion market cap industry and a $50 billion market cap industry that have both expressed interest in locating here in Plymouth, and those discussions happened as recently as yesterday afternoon. So those are the things that if we were able to move forward and show that we have a landing pad that's suitable, that has access, that has utilities. The other thing that we didn't mention is that, we abut the wastewater treatment plant. You've got 1 million gallons of capacity. We'd love to help you support that and pay for that through the use next door, which would not allow, would save us from having any direct discharge of wastewater on site. These are the things that, as we get into this conversation, these are the elements that will be on the table and discussed as we move forward.
Thank you. And so, in the event that you're following through this, and you said community outreach is a big part of any project like this, say you reach a point where a thoroughbred race track and the gambling is just not something that's being necessarily it's not following through with what the community is not necessarily for it, or there's different hiccups with this project, would there still be a commitment to make a significant investment in this area if it was not for having that there?
Our contractual agreement with the county is to explore the highest and best uses that may present themselves on this property. Although we feel that there is completely a market for our proposal, everything is on the table. Everything is on the table to explore how we can create that. So, like I say, I don't want to, I can't predict the future. If I did, I would have hit the lottery a long time ago. But, I know that there's always concerns in the community about gaming and the like. Let's not forget that Plymouth has enjoyed more than $20 million in gaming money from the Mass State Lottery over the past 10 years, and that there's gaming on every corner, at every 7-Eleven, and at every restaurant. So, this is, we want to just be open and have an open dialogue with the community and lay it all on the table, but we want to be realistic, and let's look at the reality on the ground, and how we're going to move this forward is exactly why we're here tonight, front-end engagement on this property.
Then just one more question for right now. It's every once in a while we have those issues that come forward where we, as we alluded to, get a spark of a lot of public interest. And from the nature of the emails coming in and calls and that type of thing, this is definitely one of those. So the outreach to the community, I think, is critically important to get their input. And I'm just curious to hear sort of, not that you have like it's this date, that date, but kind of like broadly, what do you see as the community engagement going forward regarding this project?
Well, it started tonight with a few of the neighbors that are here this evening. One old high school friends of Bolsolaris are here. They live in Tall Pines, right next door. So we've made a commitment tonight, and I make it publicly now that we're available. I'm available. I've handed out cards, and we intend to be right up front and right out there with our neighbors. This past Saturday, I had the great opportunity to go to the Black Feather Horse Rescue charity and meet Darlene herself, a true saint when it comes to the protection and care of horses. And we made a commitment, because she's also our neighbor right there to the south of us, that we have parallel ideologies and beliefs in the care and protection of horses, and that as we move forward, we would like to partner with her and help her efforts as well as being a good neighbor. So that's our commitment.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Harry?
Do you, following up on Patrick's line of questioning, in this process, are there any mechanisms to determine whether the community agrees with this usage or not? And if there are mechanisms, are you going to follow them if the community decides that the community does not want thoroughbred racing or racetrack in Plymouth?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I neglected, because I know some of you all know my past history, but maybe the majority don't. It's been quite a while. I was a former member of the Plymouth Planning Board and chair for over 10 years. I think if you look back at that time, that I was a strong advocate for process and public involvement. And that is really going to be the hallmark of this development team, that we will follow all the applicable laws, guidelines, mechanisms for the preview, design, planning, public outreach of a project of this magnitude. We are fully aware that this project will be transformative for Plymouth, and we're hoping that all that transformation is in a positive way. So that's our commitment right here up front, and that's why we're here tonight.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to take a few questions, but I mean, I can't take, tons of them. So I will let a few individuals speak for 3 to 4 minutes, if that's fair. If you need more time, please ask. But like I say, this is just, they're bringing a presentation to what they're working on. And I don't know if the questions you're going to ask or make comments to can even be answered. So, that being said, we'll start with Mr. Cirque because he's my favorite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rich Cirque, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2. The speakers who will follow me will speak to why a racetrack should not be built on the woodlot. What I would like to speak to you is why a racetrack cannot legally be built on the woodlot. At a prior commissioners' meeting, the following claim was made, quote, "The county, as a higher government, is not restrained by local zoning if the land use is for the benefit of the county. But if the property were sold, the underlying zoning would be law," close quote. That was too broad a statement. A more correct statement would have been, quote, "The county, as a higher government, is not restrained by local zoning if the land is used for a governmental purpose. But if the property were sold, the underlying zoning would be law." Thus, the use of the property for a firefighting training area or for a cell tower equipped with public service use sections was deemed to be immune from local zoning because both are governmental purposes. But the use of the land, for example, to remove sand and gravel, was deemed not to be immune from local zoning because it is solely a commercial purpose. If that were not the case, why were applications for special permits from the Plymouth Zoning Board of Appeals filed by Kingstown Corporation in order to lease the woodlot to Kingston for the purpose of gravel removal, which resulted in favorable decisions by the Zoning Board of Appeals in 2015 and 2018? The case law is clear, and I've supplied it by email to the board. The case law is clear that commercial use of the county-owned woodlot would indeed be subject to Plymouth zoning. I've sent you, as I said, material from a zoning treatise that collected that case law. Since most of the proposed racetrack would be located in the rural residential portion of the woodlot, and since commercial uses are not permitted in the rural residential district, and since the issuance of use variances is not authorized by the Plymouth zoning bylaw, it would require an amendment to the zoning bylaw by a 2/3 vote of town meeting to allow a racetrack to be built on the woodlot. I do not understand how this threshold issue escaped the notice of counsel for the county, counsel for the town, and counsel for Plymouth South before the project progressed this far. Thank you.
Okay, well, this is the first meeting they've had, so, I mean, how else would you like me to do this? I'm just asking, because I try to do everything so everyone knows what's going on. So if you could just answer that one question, how would you have done it differently if you were I?
If I were them...
No, that wasn't my question.
Oh, sorry.
Well, unless you were directing your question to the county, who's not here. This is the first night that this community has actually heard and seen this proposal.
What I would recommend is that Plymouth South get an opinion from its attorney, you get an opinion from town council, and the county get an opinion from its attorney. And I am as certain as I am of the fact that this is Tuesday, that the conclusion will be that legally this project cannot be built on this lot because most of the racetrack, almost all of it, is in the rural residential zone, and that use is precluded. So I would think the place to start would be to get legal opinions.
it's duly heard, and we probably will, but like I just keep saying, this was the first, and I'm doing what I told everybody I would do.
Yeah.
And, there's going to be many hearings, and of course, all that stuff is going to have to be looked at.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, this is...
Understood.
We're 10 minutes into it, but we will look at it. We're listening to the community.
Understood.
That's all, okay?
Can I ask Mr. Cirque a question?
Sure, if you don't mind. Mr. Cirque?
Mr. Cirque, now, if town meeting changes the zoning bylaw...
I'm sorry?
If town meeting by 2/3 vote changes the zoning bylaw, then it can be done, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
if there were an amendment to the zoning bylaw that would allow this use on this land, it probably would be subject to a special permit.
Right.
Then, of course, all bets are off. I'm just going on the basis of the current zoning.
Right.
And I'm also going on the basis of experience that getting a 2/3 vote from town meeting is a heavy lift.
These folks have already said that they're doing a 2 or 3 year study, so they're going to be, so who knows, things may change, and maybe they'll change the bylaw, the town meeting, who knows? But it's not impossible, it's,
Yep.
okay, thanks.
Pat, come on up.
Pat McCarthy, Precinct 5 Town Meeting member for quite a long time. I live at 156 Long Pond Road. 156 Long Pond Road is not far from the piece of land that the county bought from a private owner a few years ago at 144R Long Pond Road, which abuts the parcel of land that we're talking about tonight. And in some of the material that I've read, the county has talked about access points they hope to buy or acquire that are named in that 80-plus page report. And one is their access points, they look to me like they're coming in off of Raphael Way, off of Camelot Drive, but I'm not sure. But there's 2 parcels of land they're going to buy. And they also, in light of the residential area that I belong to, and Tall Pines Road behind me, they kind of discounted that the Tall Pines Road is just kind of a small residential subdivision, and that they would not build, they would have at least a 325-foot buffer, which kind of like put disregard to some of also the environmental concerns, aquifer concerns, a lot of concerns about that lot. One of my other concerns is that I'm not sure where all of these total tax benefits are coming from, since the county, to my knowledge, doesn't pay any taxes, and I don't think we have a pilot from them. And these millions of dollars of the $500 million development, I mean, we're going to get some revenue from meals tax probably, because they're going to have lots of restaurants, bars, whatever. But I'm not really sure about that, if that was such a benefit, since they're not buying the land. It's a lease agreement that the county's going to get, it said in the RFP, I think up to $100,000 a year or so. It was mentioned in part of the report. So those are just my concerns and questions. And I do think that, and also with the school complex in the area, I'm concerned about that. So there are many questions and concerns. I haven't read every page of the 80-plus pages. So I'm sure I'll be back to you with more concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Mr. Mann?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Frank Mann. I live in Precinct 3, and I want to say that tonight I'm speaking as a member, not as a member of the Planning Board, but as a longtime resident of Plymouth. There are a lot of things that concern me about this proposal, but I'll keep this short, or relatively so. One of my concerns is simply that the county has no business making a proposal that, if realized, would change the very nature of our community and culture. They have no standing, in my opinion. That is, I believe you would have to look long and hard for a resident who sincerely believes that the county has the best interests of the community at heart. They have not been exactly good stewards of this property. I was a reporter nearly a decade ago when I was shown a section of the woodlot where the county had allowed the land to be used as a dump. There were old fire trucks. There was a cell tower, and there was plenty of concrete and steel debris that at some point was supposed to be used to train for structural disasters and earthquakes, but it was a mess. It's still a mess. The county also proposed a massive solar array on the woodlot for which they would have had to clear cut approximately 75 acres or more. Thank goodness that never happened. Desperate for money at the time, they made a deal with a local trucking company to cut a 5-acre sand pit at the highest, the most pristine and forested part of the woodlot. Since that time, since that pit was dug, they've allowed the woods and meadows of what was largely a pristine site to become a de facto dirt bike track. Right now, or this past weekend, if you visited the site, you would have seen dozens and dozens of dirt bike riders carving up a pristine meadow that during the summer should have all sorts of wonderful species, wildflowers and such. After the sand and gravel was removed from that 5-acre pit, in 2018, the county created what I thought was a face-saving woodlot subcommittee that was supposed to meet regularly and whose stated goal was to come up with the best possible use for the remaining undeveloped property. That group met just a handful of times and coincidentally was disbanded just this past month as the RFP was opened for this proposal. Another concern of mine is that this is being considered at all. It is, in my opinion, the last thing the town needs or wants. It is yet another dream world, yet another Hollywood East. We don't seem to learn that most basic of lessons. If it sounds too good to be true, guess what? Finally, I would note that there are similarities and I believe actual connections between this project and another proposal for a racetrack and casino just a few miles away in Wareham. That racetrack proposal had the strong backing of nearly every elected board in Wareham. That proposal required, as I believe this would as well, a zoning change to make it happen. That proposal was rejected by their town meeting. When they took the vote, thousands of people showed up and over 80% of those attending voted no. Thank you.
I'm going to give you 2 more. Ma'am, you first.
Hello, my name is Elise Bruno. I live at Tall Pines Road for the past couple of years now. I've been talking with the committee about this issue. We've had many meetings with the County Woodlot Committee about this, and they have not been very transparent with us. I want to make this short. I think the main issues with developing this land would be the traffic issue that they had mentioned. I think the noise pollution should be addressed, as we are within half a mile from where this is going to happen. Another issue is the smell pollution of all the horse poo and everything. And there are environmental concerns, as there's never been an environmental survey done in this area. There are multiple vulnerable or threatened species that are in that woodlot. I also wanted to mention a couple things that I thought were interesting about the issues with the smokestack. You guys were concerned about the historical value of the smokestack, and I wanted to say that the historical value of the woodlot is that it is part of a globally rare ecoregion that is quickly diminishing. If history is a part of Plymouth, then this woodlot needs to be conserved. The trees in there, the pitch pine, take over 30 years to reach maturity. I think another thing I mentioned about the smokestack that's important is that one of you mentioned that it feels like home when you see that smokestack. The woodlot is home to hundreds of species of Plymouth, America's hometown. That's our most important historical value we have. And the county woodlot is an extension of my home. I'm in that woodlot every single day. I come across my neighbors. I see their dogs. We are all out there. It's more than just a woodlot to be converted into commercial use. You say it's for economic reasons, but I think you're forgetting an important economic aspect is environmental valuation. We have certain services from that woodlot that are economically important. For instance, it's on top of the Plymouth Carver sole source aquifer. That means that 50% of the water under there can be used for drinking water. If we mess with that and it becomes contaminated, we have an economic problem on our hands. We'd have to invest money into resources to clean that water so that we may drink. That is of high importance with all the other developments going on in this area. Another thing you guys mentioned was that with the smokestack was that prior agreements are important when considering remodeling and doing stuff to that. The prior agreement for the Plymouth County woodlot is that it was deeded to the inhabitants of Plymouth to go and gather wood and resources for their homes. I gather wood to light my fire at home. I need that woodlot. Taking it for granted for a horse racing track doesn't make sense in that area. If you think of the way our neighborhood is situated, the access point is between two of my neighbors' houses. It's not feasible to put this huge stadium in that area. I just think that other things need to be considered than just the money that can be gained in the short-term gain of that. Whereas this woodlot has been deeded to the inhabitants of Plymouth since the early 1800s. It has historical significance, and taking it away from the community is a bad move. Thank you.
Thank you. One more, ma'am.
Good evening. My name's Kathleen Fitzgerald. I live at 15 Theater Colony Way. I do not live in the area that is being talked about, but I am very, very concerned about this. When the gentleman spoke earlier, he talked about open dialogue that he was going to be doing. It's almost too late. We are hearing about this, as you are, for the very first time within the past couple of days. That's not open dialogue. Respectfully, I oppose this proposal. What do you want Plymouth to be? For years, we have prided ourselves in being America's hometown. Tourists come to see the Mayflower, Plymouth Plantation, and other important sites. Do we really want to change our image to that of a gambling, horse racing town? I think not. Second, that has been stated by others, traffic. Long Pond Road is a mess. There is so much traffic right now, and a new development of over 500 homes that hasn't even come into fruition. What is going to happen with the traffic? They state that they are going to do an assessment on the traffic. They need to, if they do an assessment, truly tell us what the impact is, because it is going to be immense. Why did Suffolk Downs close? If you Google that question, it will say that Suffolk Downs closed because there was a lack of interest in live horse racing. Between 1985 and 2015, horse racing has declined 3%. What does that mean in millions of dollars? About $500 million. Also, drugs have become quite prevalent in horse racing. Just look at last year's Kentucky Derby. I know that the gentleman stated that they have this man from Kentucky who has all this experience with horse racing. Does he think we're going to become the Plymouth Derby? God forbid. Another major problem I have is that the majority of Plymouth residents know nothing about this plan. The first time I heard about it was just 2 weeks ago. I heard about this meeting last night. Last night. They want open dialogue. It's got to be a heck of a lot better than what they've been doing right now. Now there is this meeting, and the Plymouth County Commission is supposed to vote on whether to accept something on Thursday night. That seems unbelievable. Something that could impact our community, and not necessarily in a positive way, should not be pushed through without first letting all the residents have a voice. Second, the impact study on how this will affect our town should definitely be done before things go too far. Finally, I implore the selectmen to put the brakes on this development if you possibly can. Our committee has seen our outdoor space decline over the years. Developments that cut down trees for hundreds of housing, shopping centers that are so spread out that you can't walk from one store to the other, you have to drive. I understand that we need to keep Plymouth going in a positive direction. But do we really have to go to such an extreme with hundreds of new homes, raping our forest when we have to need our trees desperately for climate change, and now to become the gambling center of Massachusetts? We really need to reassess our priorities, and this horse racing gambling plan is a great way to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, this is the beginning of this process, and I apologize that you didn't know we were going to talk about this tonight, because I did say it last week. And if you call the office and ask for Mr. Bordeaux, anybody in the room, yeah, I know, but that's, she didn't know, and I get it. So what I'm saying is, anybody that wants to call or email Chris and be on an email list, we have no problem with that. That way, all you out there can be notified. Mr. Tripp.
Sure. First, I just want to validate every comment that everyone made. I just want everyone to realize that, this is a public process. We are a society. We are a society of self-government. And while thousands of people are dying across the world for fighting for these very rights, we should enjoy and appreciate, even though we may not agree. And let's be thankful for that. But I'd just like to make sure that everyone knows that I completely hear every word you're saying, and that this process that we are going to engage in is going to engage everyone in this dialogue of where this project will go, where Plymouth is going to go in the future, and what it wants to be. And we are not here to rush any project through, take any advantage of any loopholes in zoning or government use. We intend to vet this out completely and thoroughly and cooperatively with the community. It's not exactly, and I appreciate everyone here who, feels like this just got dropped on them tonight and that it's been in the works for a while. It has been in the works for a while, because many months ago, the county publicly advertised as duly required under the law and the Mass General laws under the state of Massachusetts to advertise it, and it was completely advertised. The RFP process went out, and it's been following the legal framework for which it proceeds. I can identify with so many of you in this, because when I first got involved, I lived across the street from a little project that jumped on top of us without us knowing, called the Pine Hills Development. And I ran for office, and I was elected because of a project just like this. So hopefully it'll create more enthusiasm in participating in public government, because it's a fantastic experience. And I think that really, as we move forward together today, we're not going to solve any questions or anything answers here tonight. We just all have to agree that we're beginning of a process of which we'll work together, and hopefully, through this democratic process, we'll come to a solution, a direction, and a plan that benefits everyone involved. And that's from our heart, our commitment.
Thank you. Yep.
Lauren, can I ask you just one follow-up question? Yes. Yeah. No, thank you, and I appreciate that commitment to hearing from, and you heard from the folks tonight, this is a really, really important issue, and I was thinking about one of the comments earlier about the different mechanisms that we have to hear from our residents, and we do have election coming up that has the ability to put a non-binding question, to ask this very question to all of our voters. Is that something that you feel would be a good idea, to sort of get a temperature of the town, to feel how this project might be received?
It would be unfortunate to put that to the voters without any information in front of them. You know, I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of non-binding referendums. Many of you may not realize, but I was the one who petitioned the Board of Selectmen to bring the Community Preservation Act to Plymouth, and it passed by over 72%. But that was a process of months of educating the public to what it was to get that result, to get the will of the people. And I think it's in a democratic society, you want to make sure that the voters who direct the direction of government and society and self-governance have that information in advance so they can make an informed vote. So at a future date, when we start vetting this, if there's a public desire to get the will of the people, I'm all for it. I'm an American. We're all Americans. We're here to live this way under self-governance. This is the beauty of what we're doing here tonight, right? So this is what it's all about, my friends. This is America. Thank God.
Yeah. And I guess what I was hearing from some of the folks and reading a lot of the comments coming towards this is that there's kind of two sides of things that are being questioned and asked. There's a lot of like the logistical issues and traffic and all that type of thing, which we know is it's a long game to figure that out and how that gets to be, you know, done with public safety, all of that type of thing. But then there's another issue that has been brought here tonight and to all of us, is just the idea of the project, like the concept. And I think there's been enough people who have really voiced their opinions on not necessarily the logistics of it, but really the concept of it, that I think this might be one of those very good reasons to have a question like that.
I thoroughly agree, and you know, I mentioned the Pine Hills, and actually my former colleague, Mr. Filler here, who sat in on the majority before I even got on the board at the time, we had 50 public hearings on the Pine Hills before there was ever you know, a permit filed or anything. So, you know, I'm fully aware of what the public process needs to be, and I implore the community to take a step back and say, okay, let's go through a real process, a real community discussion. And, you know, we'd like to bring our friend, and I think you'll appreciate his southern charm and honesty, to come up here and educate the community on what he's proposing, because he's not proposing your typical race track proposal. Okay, this is a completely different proposal, and it's a model for what I think the future of racing will be and how it works. And I think the community deserves to have that conversation and have him bring that to the community. And then we can go into the dialogues of all the things. Traffic. Let's face it, traffic. We all hate traffic, but we're the participants in it as soon as we jump in our car. It's almost self-hate in a way, but we know we got to deal with it. You know, we will go through every one of these topics deserves an in-depth discussion and analysis of how it's going to impact it. And whether we develop this property or not, Plymouth still has the same problems with it or not. Let's not remember our history. We all thought back in the 1800s, Cottage Park, great facility, came in. In the 70s, it went down, left a huge economic hole in the heart of Plymouth. We now know what the Pilgrim Power Plant and the hole that that's leaving in our community and the aftermath for millennia. We don't want to make mistakes, and I'm the first to say it. I don't want to see Plymouth repeat its mistakes. But I think what we have here is an opportunity to work as a community to determine the future of this land, because someday something's going to happen. We need more industrial land, and we need to protect our environment. Well, now we can join in a dialogue to see how we can achieve both ends to a common goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've heard all that you said, but as select board, we have to hear proposals when someone brings one to us. And that's what this is tonight. It's the first time of many meetings. If you can get this project, whatever it might be, out in 50, then you're going fast. On a serious note, last year Plymouth had $3 million in new growth. What does that mean to you, the taxpayers of the community? It means it can't fly much longer like that. You know, you might have 3 years left in budgets, maybe 4. The new growth has to go up. We have planners in here tonight, and I know they have different hats on, but the ones that are here and the ones that are running for office, let me ask you this. Please, you're the planners of our community. Help us here. You all know how to do this, you know how to do that. Give us a plan that shows us where the commercial development should happen in this community of 106 square miles. Are we built out? Do we not want any more? The tax is just going to keep going up in the 5th year after this year unless something crazy happens, and heavens knows it happens. You know, do we start closing fire stations? Do we cut back on police? Do we close the school? This is the things you weigh when you sit in this chair, all these chairs. We get blamed for everything, and that's okay. Because if you don't want to get blamed, you definitely don't want to run for this job. But that being said, on a serious note, we have to come together as a community and see how are we going to address these things. We can cut. So when I first heard it, I said, you know what, I'll listen to you. That's my job. That would be like me saying, I don't want to listen to any of you tonight. You know, in my younger day, I might have tried that, but now I listen to everybody, and I heard the concerns. They asked me one day what the 3 top concerns were. The first thing out of my mouth was the traffic. We don't need any development on Long Pond Road. We already have too much. It already is a mess. So that, you know, all these things have to be addressed. Why did I run for this office? I'll give you one reason. Because they're putting 300 to 400 units in the Home Depot, a commercial area, okay? That should have never happened. It should have never happened because that was good commercial space. And now we're adding all these extra car trips, and I don't know all about that, but that's one of the reasons I ran for this office, because things needed to change a little bit, the direction. We have another partial coming up that I'm not going to touch on too much because I really shouldn't, but while we're all having fun, the Holtec property, okay? And there's a legacy grant out there that I believe the town will be applying for, but I mean, we have to have development somewhere, and we should plan for it, and then we wouldn't be having these things. I think everybody's a little excited because they don't know enough about the project. I sure heck don't know a lot about it. It hasn't really started. Frank's over there licking his chops saying, wait till they get in the planning board. I get it. And that's the process. But more than that is, what's better for Plymouth? How do we have to make this budget work, future budgets, and that's all in the big picture, in the scheme of things. So we will listen to you. There's more projects other than the racetrack that we've touched on already. I think to the tune of almost $500 million in new development. That's how you get to almost $7.8 million in tax revenue for this community. Just on Holtec, we're losing $7 million a year, just right there. So what I'm trying to do is explain to everybody in this room to at least listen, be open-minded, and still make your case and be respectful. And I have to say, all of you have been very respectful, and I appreciate that. And that's what makes Plymouth, Plymouth. But we're a big town, we're gonna have proposals, but, you know, we sometimes you have to push on the development a little bit, and, you know, it can't all be developed, heavens no. You talk about your own neighborhoods and walking your dogs, and you know what? It's all true. I live in North Plymouth. I was born there in North Plymouth. And, you know, as long as it's in North Plymouth, it's fine. Well, North Plymouth is full. West Plymouth's getting there. And we all share our burden of development, and it has to be equal throughout this community. So let's keep the process going. There'll be plenty of time to discuss this, what people like and don't like, and we'll leave it to the ones that are supposed to do it. I mean, we're selectmen, but we don't give out building permits, thank heavens. So, that being said, we'll keep everybody posted. Lauren, when there's a meeting, you'll let us know and we can post it or whatever the next step might be. All right? Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Do I? Just so,
We should do it now, right?
yeah,
Or you want to wait?
no, not. Just so folks know,
Hang on one second. We gotta go.
Rich, sir. Nice to see you. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
so as, you know, I didn't know we were going to have a mass exodus here, so, which is fine. But as selectmen, it is our job to make sure that when something comes in front of us, we make sure we do our due diligence and we make sure we support the people to do their due diligence that have come in front of us. Now, I'm not sure of all the exactness of everything, but as the executive branch of this government, I believe that we have to give this organization the tools to be able to do what they need to be able to come back to the public and have the input that our community, you know, needs. So with that, I am going to make a motion, and I will read this motion to you. And I move that the board express support for the conceptual project of sports and entertainment complex and service amenities in the town of Plymouth to be located on approximately 110 acres of land on Camelot Drive and Long Pond Road, also known as the Woodlot, subject to the project proponent obtaining all the necessary licenses, permits, and approvals, and maintaining compliance with all the applicable statutes, codes, regulations, and bylaws. And that is my motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Blitzer. Discussion? Mr. Helm, then Patrick, Mr. Flaherty.
Well, those of you left in the audience and those of you watching on PAC TV may remember when I ran for the select board. My main reason for running was the burden of taxes on our residents that has not been offset by commercial development because we have very little. Some people say 10%, some people say 14%. Everybody agrees that is not healthy, and that puts the burden of the costs involved in running the town squarely on the shoulders of the residents. And I'll echo what the chairman said. Everybody in town needs to realize the importance of commercial development and what happens with that going on to the very existence of the town we love. The town will continue to exist without it, but it may very well not be the town we all know and we all love. And it's incumbent upon all of us, not just the elected members of town meeting, the Board of Selectmen, or the various committees, including the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. It is incumbent on all of us to understand that Plymouth has changed in the last little bit over a decade. We are a residential nexus. We are highly desirable as a residential destination. We have to offset what has happened to our property values and also the building in the far-flung areas of our 100 square miles. We must offset that with commercial development. There's no doubt about it. There's no way to escape it. There's no sand pit for you to stick your head in. Okay, that is a reality. Now, to this, I'm not going to support this motion. Not because I necessarily have made up my mind that this is a bad usage for the woodlot or for the town of Plymouth and its future and what we become. I'm not going to vote for this because I really don't have the information that I need to say that I'm going to support this going forward, this part. We are being asked for a letter of support. I understand that that's conditional, but one of the other things that I promised when I was elected that I would give due consideration, that I would think about things, that I would demand information and facts before I made up my mind, and also input from the residents before I made up my mind. I'm just hearing about this last week, basically. I do not have the response to the RFP. I have the RFP. I don't have the response, okay? I have not read it, okay? I have not heard anything tonight that I consider to be factual detail. It's in the realm of supposition and what could be and what might be. And that could be well and fine for this part of the process. I just can't give my vote to a letter of support at this time. Once again, it is not because I think that the town of Plymouth does not need commercial development. I've always been very clear about that. And it is not because I don't necessarily or won't necessarily on down the line support the idea that's being proposed here. It's just that this is coming on too quickly with too little information for me. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Charlie?
Respectfully, Mr. Helm, I believe that we need to move this forward if we want to get more information, because, you know, this is the first meeting, and if we don't show support, you know, this may not go anywhere. I think we need to vote it forward and let them get more information, come back to us, and keep moving this process forward. So so I'm going to be voting for this. Respectfully.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, but I just want to first understand, what are we voting on exactly? I haven't seen the motion before, and I just heard it for the first time now, so.
We're basically voting on a motion of support for them to move forward with all of their investigation and all of their, whether they have to go to zoning, planning, licenses, the state, federal, wherever they have to go to bring this conceptual project forward and then back to us. That's what the motion is. The motion is that we support what they need to do to bring it to fruition, but it doesn't say that we are agreeing that, oh yeah, that's great, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. There are so many hoops that these folks have to jump through that, you know, before they can come back and we can get the input with the community and the several public hearings that we're going to have. So that's why I made the motion. And I think it's important as a board to be able to give them the information that they need so they can move forward, and give them the support that they need so they can move forward to get the rest of the information that we need, that we can discuss with our community and see how this whole thing's going to go. So that's, the letter of support isn't saying, yep, we agree with everything you do. It's obviously got several stipulations of all the things that they have to go through, but I think it's on us to give them the tool to do that. So.
Got it. So it's a letter of support for their thoroughbred racing and gambling license process.
Well, no, it's a letter of support. What did I just do with it? Oh my goodness.
Been a long day.
It sure has. These 3 o'clock executive sessions have to stop, I'll tell you that. Sports and entertainment complex. Because they don't know, once they do all their testing, if there's going to be thoroughbred racing. They don't know if the soil is right, if the planets align, if any of that. So sports and entertainment complex gives them the ability to go out and get the information that they need. That, you know, there may be things, I mean, we heard about horse racing, we heard about a sports complex, we heard about a minor baseball league, we heard about an international soccer team, we heard about a concert venue. So these are all the things that, you know, like for horse racing, the thoroughbreds, and this is just a, you know, little Googling, they have to have a certain type of soil. So they can't just go run on dirt. It has to be compacted to a certain degree and all sorts of things. So the motion that I made is to give them to support to move forward with what they're going, because it's going to be very difficult for them to move forward and get all the information if They say, well, did you get support from the town to do all this investigation? And they say, no. It's kind of dead in the water right from the beginning, in my opinion, so.
Okay, so I think respectfully, we might have heard differently Loring's presentation. I heard that this is the anchor of this project, is thoroughbred racing and gambling license. That's the only thing that's being brought forward, which is why I made sure to ask that question. And then there might be auxiliary businesses that come after that as the anchor. So I see this letter of support not to vote for the auxiliaries, but we're giving them the support from the select board, support from the town to pursue thoroughbred racing and gambling on that site. That's the proposal, that's what we've heard. And honestly, I have not received one piece of paper on this yet. I spoke with Loring over the weekend when I wanted to follow up and hear how the Friday meeting went, because understandably so, there wasn't quorums at that meeting. And I asked, can I see the follow-up paperwork, the RFP submission? And understandably, it was still maybe in the process or something like that, that you couldn't release it. But we're being asked to give a support of a project where I have not seen one piece of paper on it. And furthermore, we've only heard from the community right now very strong opposition. So I know this board is very understanding of wanting to get community input. And right now, the only community input that I've heard is that this is not good, which we know any big project is going to have a lot of initial outcry like that. That's a given. I think everyone knew going in this would be the case. However, I guess my question is for Derek, to put you on the spot. This type of letter of support, is this necessary to the process that they have to go forward now to do their due diligence, that the select board supports and endorses their thoroughbred racetrack and gambling proposal?
Through the chair, that's a good question. So, you know, we heard the presentation on Friday morning from the proponents, and they had indicated that in order for them to advance this discussion, especially at the state level, that they would need a letter of support from the select board.
Yeah, just
Sure, come on up.
sure, but
We usually don't, but
I just want to
this
say
is important.
just say one thing, that this proposal is not a small subdevelopment. This is not some more residential, respectfully to everything that it could bring to the town. This is something that will change the fabric of our community forever, and we need to learn a lot more about it. I need to get one piece of paper that says something about this, about the proposal, before I'm going to support it. And I don't understand how we could have a complete and thorough and legally sounding motion come forward when members of the board have not even had an opportunity to hear that once and being asked to support that. I honestly don't know what to say besides the fact that I can't support this tonight for those reasons, but a lot more questions than, right.
And fully agree, and I think that Ms. Selectwoman Cavaco is got the kernel of what I think her intent is that she is supporting the process to move forward so that we can explore this together. This is not a support of thoroughbred horse racing. This is not a support of whatever may be on the site. It's about supporting a process moving forward that we have at least a sense of initial cooperation with the community, just as we have the partnership with the county. And the state delegation, I think, was also, willing to work through the process, through the public process with us. But I think that what would be helpful is to have at least a formal acknowledgement that we all agree that there's a full and vetted process that needs to begin, and that the town is willing to support that process moving forward. It is not a support of any of the end uses at this point. It's just a support of the process.
I thought I said that, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Joe.
just for the record, that's exactly how I see it, too. It's just to support the process, not necessarily horse racing, but the process of going to the state and seeing where this goes. So, and again, we need to explore all economic developments. We can't just keep conserving land. We really have to look into things like this and see what happens with it. And it's, as they said, this is not going to happen next week or the week after. This could 2-3 years before they even get permitted to do this. So, but we have to give them the opportunity to at least explore this. So, and then come back to us with more information. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 3 in favor, 2 in opposition. Mr. Flaherty in opposition, and Mr. Helm. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a discussion on the acquisition of the DCR property on the waterfront. Mr. Blutzer, or Derek, did you want to speak to it first, or?
Well, I'll defer to the
Charlie?
chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Blutzer.
I brought this to the attention of the new town manager, Brindisi. Asked him to look into the state park.
Charlie, could you speak in, because I can barely hear you. Just pull the microphone right in front.
Yeah, I'm new at this still. Anyway, I brought it to the attention of new town manager, Derek Brindisi. Asked him to look into the purchasing the south, the state park south. If you're familiar where the pavilion is on the water. It's a state park that we owned and we sold for $1 to the state in 1939. So after talking to some the tourism people, see Plymouth, we had talked about that. I also talked to, and I'm going to read an email from the director of Project Arts. Project Arts, I'm sure everybody out here is familiar, is one of our biggest tourist attractions. It's a free concert on Wednesday nights down on the waterfront. And, you know, we get a lot of tourists, a lot of people from out of town come there. It's a big event. I'm a big supporter of it. So, and I'll read his letter in a minute, but see Plymouth, Lee Filson, the director, told me that they would love to have control of and own the state park, the town, so they could do events there. And they've gotten turned down from several events that the state wouldn't allow them to have. So that's, as Kenny Tavares knows out there, that's where the parade, start and finish the parade. We do our parades there. It's an important part of our history, especially our current history now, right across from Coles Hill. So, you know, I'd love to get control of that so we could do events there and we could have control on what goes there. Let me just read.
I just wanted to let you guys know I'm very disappointed that you wait for us to walk out to make a vote on this.
So let me read.
Very disappointed with this town. So thank you.
Shouldn't have left, yep. Anyway.
Okay, now.
Okay, let me just read, if I could read this. I have been advocating for the town. This is Mike Landers, the director of Project Arts. Him and a group of volunteers give all their time. There's a lot of time that goes into this. They raise over $100,000 every year to put this free concert on. I've been advocating for the town to take back the South Park for 27 years. Here are a few reasons to do so. Philosophies. The state has never been an advocate for events in the park. I have been told many times that they would prefer that it be used for nothing more than a walking park. The overall attitude of the DCR staff is unfriendly and condescending to users. After 25 seasons, with not so much as an argument in our audience, we are forced to pay for security staffing that basically does nothing. We are overregulated. There are a number of events which have been denied access over the years that would have been a great benefit to the citizens as well as our tourism community. The cookie-cutter approach to management of the park as the same as, say, the half-shell and Esplanade is excessive for Plymouth. The town of Plymouth is growing in so many ways, and we are tourist-driven by our historic properties. This should be no different. I believe that we can double the number of events, which would increase the revenue stream. Our audience and staff after all of these years, our concert goers are so in tune with our expectations that they completely pick up after themselves and treat the park with great respect. We produce family events and will continue to do so. The costs, DCR has doubled our rental costs in just 3 years, which makes our job that much harder. We are willing to continue to pay the current amount to bring the town back in. The town could easily pay for staffing and upkeep with the fees that are charged. The acquisition, with the amount of town-owned conservation land bordering the state forest, I believe that we could carve out as section of equal value for the trade. DCR could manage that property. Yet it would remain as conservation land, which could be a win-win. The future, the Pilgrim Memorial South Park area could become the epicenter of large events on the waterfront, which would please our residents as well as help continue to build that tourist trade. He apologizes for not being here today, but he didn't have to be. I told him I'd read this letter. So I think it's an important tourism piece of property, and I would like to explore. I talked to Mr. Cohen about maybe helping out with some CPC funds, if possible, if he doesn't spend them all in the stack. But hopefully it's something I'd really like to get done. So thank you.
Mr. Light?
Steve Lyden, and I am chairman of the Visitor Service Board. I have spoken to most of the people who do events on the waterfront. The Chamber, Lee Folsom, Mike. It just seems that there seems to be such a problem dealing with DCR. The Waterfront Festival didn't get their permits for 2 days before their event. It's just, they're hard to work with, from what I understand. I'm getting this is directly from the people I've spoken to. It's not hearsay. And they're very dissatisfied with the attitude that they get, the service that they get from them. And we pay them for their staff, their security staff. Why? Our policemen, the Waterfront Festival supports the police coming down, the DPW picking up. The 4th of July does it. So does the Thanksgiving, Ollie D. Messino. All these people, they're all volunteers. They all have to raise money, and yet we're paying for them. Why do we have to pay them? It's just another expense that they shouldn't have, and especially to have to go through all the grief to get their permits. It's just not fair. So I would love to see the park come back to the town. Thank you.
Mr. Bolton, and then Mr. Malaguti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Select Board. What we've heard tonight repeatedly is the need for a balance between conservation and commercial. This seems to be the exact thing that we've all been talking about. The opportunity to get control, for the town to control a conservation area that can be used to drive something that I've been an advocate for, which is bringing more concerts and arts events to this town. The type of commercial venture that benefits everyone of every ilk, people who come here, people who live here, people who are running businesses here. Concerts are the type of event that makes people come to our downtown area and spend money, residents as well as visitors. There is no question that if there's an opportunity to explore something that meets that balance, that's exactly what public servants here in town have been asked to do. So I support this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everett Malaguti, and I concur with the last two speakers. This is a high priority. I also sit on the Visitor Services Board as well, and I believe this is a much-needed acquisition that needs to be reverted back to town control, not just for the concerts and the actual ownership that the town has lacked for the waterfront ownership of tens of thousands of people that is dearly lacking, even though it's still access to the public and all that. I believe that having this crucial piece back in town ownership is going to make a much stronger economic engine for the downtown, not just for the art scene and public groups, but the parades, other festivals that have not been allowed to occur because of the restrictions due to DCR regulations. It's going to allow us to make right what the DCR didn't allow us to do of the amphitheater by actually building it correctly and not in the wrong position to get better acoustics and performances to occur. I believe this is going to be a better win for the taxpayer money, since we did spend millions of dollars in this area redoing the entire road in front of the rock and the sidewalks and everything else. So I believe that this is a much needed acquisition to bring back to town ownership to get the economic engine that's vitally needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board. Derek, do we need a motion to authorize you to contact with DCR or?
Yes, the chair. So I had the opportunity to meet with Representative Muratori a couple of weeks back. I brought this issue to his attention, and he had counseled me on the fact that in order to begin discussions with the Department of Conservation and Recreation, what the first thing we need would be a vote of support to enter into discussions with DCR. That's the first thing DCR would be looking for. And then if conversations continue further, at some point we'll have to come back to the board to talk about identifying a source of funds that would be equal to the value of that property.
I'd like to make a motion
And?
to instruct the town manager to engage in talks with DCR and that the board put a letter of support to do that.
Second. Second. Discussion? I just have, is this the whole section, or is this from, say, the right of the portico?
I would defer to.
Oh, the whole thing?
It's the right of the portico.
Okay.
I mean, that's a start, so let's work on that first, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Town manager's report, and there is some good news.
There is some good news, so let's start off with the great news first. A few hours back, I received a phone call from Senator Markey's office, who wanted to inform the Select Board and the community at large that the town will be the recipient of a $25 million grant for the reconstruction of Plymouth Long Beach. So this is a sizable award. We would expect that David Gould will be working directly with the Army Corps of Engineers. This is going to be led by the Army Corps of Engineers. So congratulations to the board. I know that the board has been pushing this, has been advocating for the last 3 years with Senator Markey's office on this. In fact, we had a meeting scheduled this Friday to submit our fourth advocacy letter in this vein. So congratulations to the past 3 years of strong advocacy. Pending any questions, I'll continue to move on. So just, I know Lynn Barrett had talked a little bit about this last week, and when we think about, our customer service and how we can engage and provide access relative to our beach stickers, transfer station stickers, and other online transactions. But I just want to bring to your attention that outside kiosk that was, I think, installed a while back has already received 1,300 transactions, and which represents about $290,000 in transactions. So that kiosk is serving its purpose. And at the same time, as Lynn pointed out last week, working with our IT director, we are in the midst of installing a help desk. We'll have 2 technicians that'll work on the main floor, and we expect them to be ready by mid-April to assist individuals who come to Town Hall with those online transactions. We know that some folks may not be tech savvy, and many of our modes of doing business are online. So we think that between the kiosk and the help desk, we'll be able to provide that access that folks continue to be challenged with. Just some fire updates. The West Plymouth Fire Station is having their underground storage tank removed on April 4th. As you know, West Plymouth Fire Station is already earmarked to undergo a major renovation in the near future. And so this is kind of one of the first steps in preparing it for renovation is by removing those storage tanks. The Old North Fire Station, I think you would remember, North Plymouth Fire Station, went out to bid. We didn't have any successful bidders. So we're working with the team, procurement office and the like, to put that back out to bid. So at some point, you know, we were looking at what the minimum bid amount should be before we go back out to bid. But just to bring it to your attention, we're thinking about right now, the discussion we're having internally is to put out to bid for the current assessed value, which I think is approximately $200,000 off the top of my head. Moving on, Jerome Hart, I was informed, has been promoted to deputy chief. So he was formerly a battalion chief. Given the fact that Neil Foley is the incoming fire chief, we had to fill what will be his deputy vacancy. So congratulations to Jerome Hart for that promotion. And then I want everyone to be aware that on April 12th, there'll be an open house for Chief Bradley at the fire headquarters. So we're going to honor Chief Bradley in as many ways as possible for his multiple decades of service to this community. And it's an open house not just to staff, but it's an open house to the community to come down, say hi to Chief Bradley, bid him farewell and success in the future. As far as the police department goes, the mountain bike patrol will begin April 1st in downtown Plymouth. But just as important, the Chief Flynn has reported that he has now finalized an agreement with the Department of Child and Family Services. This is a program, it's a pilot program where the DCF will provide a social services coordinator, actually a mental health counselor is what I should call them, from the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. That mental health counselor will drive along with a patrol officer and will respond to 911 calls in the situation where there was a behavioral health type of issue. So as you know, that behavioral health, especially because of COVID, has been exacerbated. And I would say the vast majority of the calls nowadays are linked to someone's mental health status. And you know, you talk to folks at the hospital, many of the reason why you have folks waiting in the ED is because of mental health issues. So, you know, congratulations to Chief Flynn to organize such a cooperative agreement with DCF. We'll continue to report back on how, you know, as that evolves. Moving on to economic development, the UMass strategy report, which is basically a master plan for economic development, is nearing its end. Talking to Steve Cohen today, he was proposing that we'll have a joint meeting with the Economic Development Foundation and the Select Board, more towards the end of April, so we can see the findings of this UMass strategy report. You know, I know you as a whole board have talked a lot about economic development, even as recent as tonight. So I think this will kind of help set the stage and give us a framework to begin those discussions. About a month ago, recommendations came from the Harbor Committee. They had some milestones that they were hoping that we could meet effective April 15th. So just to give you an update, the no wake sign is already in, and floats at the boat ramp and the town wharf have been installed as well. Again, those are all 2 weeks in advance of the April 15th deadline. So we'll keep you posted, weather permitting. And the last item I just wanted to bring up is related to the Massachusetts COVID emergency paid sick leave policy. So just to give you a refresher, this sick leave was passed at the state level effective May of 2021. It provides 5 days of emergency paid sick leave to any one of our employees due to COVID. And because of that, the state would reimburse the town $850 per employee who went on paid sick leave. Unfortunately, this program ended at the state level effective March 15th. So from March 15th to June 30th, the town will be paying 100% of those costs. So I wanted to bring that to your attention because I know that there was a previous vote taken to allow the town to continue to provide such leave for all employees effective June 30th. So that's going to continue unless I hear otherwise. But again, it will end effective June 30th if if it's not extended through the board. Pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Derek, if I may, excuse me, is the school department doing the same thing, the same date? I mean,
So the school district through the school committee has all, as you pointed out, committed to this program until June 30th as well.
okay.
Pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
The only other question I had was, Mr. Abbott has an article he's bringing to town meeting with Long Beach, and I believe it's for a study or whatever. Would you just check with David on this $25 million grant and make sure they're not going to interfere with each other? What exactly, David will understand what's going on, just want to double check it.
Sure, I'm happy to follow up.
Okay. Any questions from the board on Derek's report? Okay, moving right along. Anyone wishing to speak on the public comment? Look at that, okay.
It's a good thing.
Okay,
The Historical Society and the VSB got together, and they decided that the sign down in North Park Avenue and Court Street needed some repair. And they did it. VSB provided the money, but the Historical Society, they did the design and the installation, and the DPW installed the sign. I don't know if you've seen the sign, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And they should be commended. They did a great job. And something, the town should be proud of, because it really is beautiful. Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Tavares, and then I think Mr. Jeanette, no? Then you'll be next. Okay. Oh, that's Mr. Janetti over here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, congratulations certainly on the $25 million grant. I think that shows when there's a lot of hard work and relationships built and you're ready, the dollars are available. So that everyone's to be congratulated on that, because I know it was a long process. But it leads me into something else that I'd like to say to you this evening. And that is, over the next week, I think you have to think long and hard about the motion that you approved of tonight in regards to the track. There are a lot of questions. There are, certainly I'm sure answers and information that can be put forth, but that needs to be done. That's part of what I think you've advocated and talked about being transparent. You are in charge of what goes on in this town. You set the course. And there can't be a developer that comes in and says, I'm going to bring this in and not put anything in front of you. Even if it's the initial talks. Go back to even when the movie company was here, they actually buried us in paper and financial reports. I think you need to have that information, and you are in a position to demand it. To give support without having any backup is dangerous. And I think that in order to be fair with the process, there's no doubt about it that we need economic development. We've talked more than 12 years about that. This has been going on for years. But I really want you to think about it and make a list. And there are people in this town that can help do that. We have an outstanding group that it's doing economic development now. It's as you know, it's a semi-public group. They're doing a fantastic job. The planning department is good at it. You all have questions. Those need to go to these people and say, listen, before we get too into this, give us some basic facts. I think you will serve yourself, and you'll serve this community, and you'll serve the project that's put before you if you have some information. Please think about that in the next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Select Board. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Marshall. I am the business manager with Laborers Local 721. We represent 23 towns here on the South Shore. My office is in East Bridgewater. I just want to give a little background on what's going on at Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station. I feel You, as town officials, need to hear this, and the general public as well. Obviously, the hot topic now is the water and the discharge and the dumping into the bay. That's getting a lot of the attention and a lot of the coverage, but there's another issue going on at Pilgrim right now that I just want to give a little background on. And, you know, I am the business manager of Local 721 Laborers Union, and I'm going to talk a little bit about unions and contracts and jurisdiction, but I don't want that to be, you know, highlighted on what this is all about. There's a bigger issue going on, but I need to lay the groundwork of actually kind of how we got here to our current situation. So back when Holtec acquired Pilgrim from Entergy in 2019, you know, I went to many of the NDCAP meetings and listened to what they had to say and everything, and we established a bit of a relationship, and they actually came to us, LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America, along with the operating engineers and IBEW, Electrical Workers Union. And they drafted up an agreement after the acquisition of Pilgrim, and they came to us with a decontamination, demolition, and it was a decontamination, demolition, and of nuclear power generation facilities. So they came to us with this 3-year agreement. It went into effect 2019, and it was to expire this year, September 30th, 2022. We've been down there doing the work, and just to back up a bit, members of this local and this union built that plant in 1968. We've performed over 21 refueling outages at the plant. We've had hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people, members of this union, work down there, and there's never been one, you know, catastrophic event. There's never been anything to speak of. We've been down there for over 2 years now. We've performed a lot of critical operations as far as the asphyxie pad. We built that pad. We moved all the spent fuel. We encapsulated all that fuel in concrete, placed it safely. We've been demoing buildings outside the footprint of the reactor. This is all asbestos. This is lead. This is very critical work. About a year ago, the original agreement was with CDI, Comprehensive Decommissioning International. They were a subsidiary company of Holtec. They changed. That company was being dissolved. CDI was no longer to exist at the plant. They were going to become HDI, Holtec Decommissioning International. Well, we were told this isn't going to affect the craft, this isn't going to affect the personnel, this isn't going to affect you know, supervision, management, anything like that. Work goes on. We continue to do this work. Beginning of this year, rumors start floating around that there's a new agreement out there. There's a 5-craft agreement. When the original one was 3-craft agreement, it was to expire September 30th of 2022. There's a new 5-craft agreement. And I said, what's going on? What is this agreement? Oh yeah, there's a new 5-craft agreement. We're no longer acknowledging the previous agreement with the 3 crafts because CDI no longer exists, and now we're Holtec Decommissioning International. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. There's successorship clauses in the contract and things like that. So they said, well, it is what it is. So I notified my international in Washington, D.C., and they were told that they had roughly, maybe a little more, 2 to 3 weeks to sign this new agreement when we were already under agreement to perform this work. At this time, I had over 60 men and women working down there at Pilgrim, and these are all people with many years' experience down at the plant, trained in asbestos, in lead, advanced rigging, all the rad worker training. And mind you, when Entergy left or sold to Holtec, there was no longer any training provided by the plant. Holtec has never installed or had any systems where they could train people at the plant. So I took on that burden. Even though it was in the contract that they were supposed to provide that, I did that because I wanted to provide the best, safest workplace for my members. So we have a training facility in Hopkinton, Mass. We sent all our members who, it's not that they weren't trained to begin with, but sometimes quals expire and things like that. They need to be updated. So we took on that burden just to give them a better product. We bent over backwards. We've done everything we can for them. So basically, they gave us a deadline and said, if your international does not sign this contract within the next 2 weeks, it was roughly 2 to 3 weeks, your members will no longer be allowed to work here because you don't have a contract to work under. And we went back and forth, and that's exactly what happened. So as of February 24th, I believe it was, all those men and women, a lot of them, I'd say over 75% of them, Plymouth residents, have been laid off and locked out of Pilgrim. And that's a huge issue, and we've, contacted our legal people, and they've filed charges with the National Labor Relations Board, and this thing is, gaining traction. But the part I'm here to talk about is who is in there doing that work now. Well, our intention was never to keep any of the other craft out of the power plant. We work very closely with the operators, the electricians, the carpenters, the iron workers. We built this building we're sitting in here tonight. We built Plymouth North High School. We built Plymouth South High School. We built Duxbury High School. We built Marshville High School. I could go on and on and on and on how the crafts work together. All those 21 refueling outages for the past 54 years, we worked hand in hand with all those other trades. So this is the outlier where there was only 3 crafts. And mind you, they came to us with this agreement. We weren't trying to block anyone or keep anyone out of there. And now we're being locked out of there. Well, where are they finding the people to go in there? Well, the Carpenters Union has now created it's actually comical, a decommissioning specialist title with a new wage and benefit scale. They're not traditional carpenters who have the experience and the training that have always been at the plant. They said, okay, we're going to basically, because mind you, they weren't on the original agreement, said we're going to create a new wage and benefit scale, call them decommissioning specialists, and try to find people to come in and fill these roles. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. They've tried soliciting my members who were at the plant, and they're not going to go become a carpenter, decommissioning specialist. They're loyal to their union. They feel they were wrongly treated, and they should be back in there as a laborer. Well, they're going out and they're finding people off the street with no experience. It's called new to nuke in the industry. I myself performed, I was a laborer for 15 years. I worked 5 refueling outages at Pilgrim. I've been the business manager for this local for 8 years now. I represent over 450 members, and close to 200 of those members are from Plymouth. That's 200 families in this community that I represent, and there was over 60 of those people locked out right now. And those people that are coming in under the guise of decommissioning specialists, they have the gall to call it that. These people have no training, no experience, never stepped foot in a nuclear power plant. They can't even get through the gate to get access in the plant. I think their track record is about 50% right now, getting people even through the drug screen and the federal background investigation. The ones that do get in, I've been hearing horror stories. People have been reaching out to me from inside the plant who are still there, whether it's Holtec supervision, security, maintenance people that have been there. They said, Andrew, this is ridiculous. We feel like we're being set up for failure. We feel like this is an accident waiting to happen for the employees and the people who work there, and potentially the general public. These people have no experience, and this isn't something you can teach overnight or on a Zoom class or anything like that. This is 54 years of experience and know-how in the policies and procedures of how that plant works, the ins and outs. And like I said, that's something that can't be taught overnight. I've reached out to the NRC personally and informed them of this. A lot of the members have reached out to the NRC and informed them of this. And we've reached out to the Attorney General, the Governor, Senator Markey, Elizabeth Warren, Keating. They all know about it. We had a demonstration out there 2 weeks ago when there was a big meeting with some of the state politicians and the NRC, and some of them wouldn't go in because they said they're not going to cross a picket line. Well, it wasn't a picket line. It was an informational protest. We were trying to just get the word out there. I have over a three-page letter that I sent to the NDCAP. I sent them that letter. I spoke last night right down the hall at that meeting, along with my colleague Scott Gustafson, and we're just trying to gain traction and inform the town, inform the public of what's going on, and this thing will be worked out one way or another. I'll put my members to work, whether it's at Pilgrim or not, but I think you as town officials need to know what's going on and who these people are in there being asked to do this work. I mean, the water's a big deal, the discharge, but this is actually happening right now. This has been happening for the past month. I know for a fact that even today, 7 of these new workers were contaminated, and they lost their clothes. They couldn't even leave the plant until this. And this is not common. You say, oh, it's a nuclear plant, it's dirty. No, that usually doesn't happen down there. Just the other day, one of the new decommissioning specialists was literally sleeping on the floor in the lobby of one of the buildings, and someone went over to give him medical attention, see if he was okay. He woke up and said, oh, he had a rough night. They gave him a breathalyzer, fitness for duty, and he failed it. These people are not local. They're grabbing them from wherever they can. They're bringing them in, and it's like a Band-Aid until they figure out what's going on with this. And I'm not asking you to figure out our contract issues or the legalities of that, but there's definitely a safety concern that needs to be addressed at the highest level, I believe.
Sure.
Come on up, Scott.
Thank you. Chairman Quintal, Vice Chairman Cabaco, and the board. You just heard Andrew Marshall talk about what's going on down at Pilgrim Station. My name's Scott Gustafson. I think most of you know me. You know how passionate I am about these issues, and how much of my life I've put into making sure that not just Plymouth families, but the workers of our local unions are treated respectfully. I've never seen a situation like this in my entire life. Now, I talked to Selectman Bletzer last week. I apprised him of the situation. He spoke to Patrick O'Brien. Patrick O'Brien told him that it was the laborers who refused to sign an agreement. Let me just give you a little background on that, as Andrew did. 52 years of history of working down there. We fought for those jobs, and I know Vice Chairman Cabaco knows that. Our laborers worked hard down there to make sure that that was a very good, safe-running power plant. We took a lot of pride in that plant, we always did, and we did it right up till we were locked out a few weeks ago. If you look at Holtec's press release, they actually praised the craftsmen who moved the fuel out of that plant in record time. And then they locked us out over a negotiation that they said went bad. It's over hurt feelings. So, as Andrew said, we're not looking for you to negotiate our agreement. We know how to do that. We've done that for a long time. But a lot of times when you're running for election, you call me, you ask if I can support you, and I do, because I love this process. I love the town, I love the politics of this town, I love being involved. And I don't do it because I need to ask you for something back. But there are 60 of our members who live in this town, most of them who live in this town, that are locked out of their jobs down at Pilgrim, that, that care about this town the way you do, and care about that plant the way you do and what happens down there. So I am asking you tonight, as the select board of this town, who does have the ear of Holtec to some degree. I'm sure you had negotiations today in your executive session at 3 o'clock, to get a meeting with Holtec and let them know that this is absolutely, just can't happen. Just can't happen. We never not wanted to sign that agreement. We told them last night at the Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Board, put the agreement on the table, we'll sign it right now. They locked us out. It's a lockout. You can't get involved in a labor dispute, but you can get involved in a lockout. And we need your help now, because the families that we represent that are your constituents need your help. I heard a lot tonight about the fabric of this town. Whether it be the stack at Cottage Park or over at Long Pond Road with this racetrack or the DCR land. And you know what? It's right. The fabric of this town is important. We had a great history. We're a part of the fabric of this town. the members of our local union, are members of this community as well. We need your help. We need you to speak up and talk to Holtec, and don't believe them when they say the laborers refused to sign the agreement, because that's just unreasonable. That's an unreasonable and materially false statement. Doesn't make sense. Been down there 50-something years, took pride in it. We fought for those jobs. We always would. We always did a good job. They said it themselves. They threw us out. Now we need your help. Thank you.
Mrs. Cavaco?
Thank you both, Andrew and Scott, for coming in front of us and for allowing people to hear what exactly is going on down there. Now, you're right, I've worked with both of you for over 30 years and members of Local 721, and they're some of the most qualified folks that, excuse me, that I have had the pleasure of working with in the nuclear industry. So what you're saying is nothing that I haven't heard. I also spoke to Patrick myself. I talked to Tommy White, and he let me know what was going on. And you're right, that's what they're saying, that a contract wasn't signed. But I have to tell this board, because none of them here have worked at a nuclear power plant, and especially Pilgrim Station, that type of caliber of employee is unacceptable. You don't have 7 people contaminated in a day. You don't have someone walking through all sorts of security checkpoints and failing a breathalyzer. It just doesn't happen. And it is unacceptable, and it is unsafe. And I think if there is anything this board can do, they need to take action, support these guys that are down there, that have worked forever down there, as long as I can remember. And we need to do something, because we don't want any kind of safety issue that's happening down there. Yes, they're decommissioning, but you know what? There's still a lot of things in there that could go wrong. And I don't think any one of us want to be part of that. And I certainly don't want to be sitting in the board where some kind of emergency like that happened and there was something we could do about it. So I would hope that we could do something. I mean, if the board doesn't want to do it as a board, I'd be happy to, do something myself. I'm not sure what. And I don't think I ever called you, Scott, but I do appreciate your support. So, but I think that, it just, I really do think we need to do something. We need, we need to protect our community. I mean, like Mr. Tavares said, we make the decisions, and I have something to say about all that anyway in a little bit, but I think it's important that we, take a stand, because we want people down there that know what they're doing. These guys train just like we did. We were in training every 6 weeks. We had rigging. I was a rigging inspector. I know exactly what they're talking about. So we can't have non-qualified people down there. I was told a couple days ago that they tried to bring in 14 carpenters and only 2 passed the drug test. We can't have that kind of stuff. Not here in our town, not in a nuclear facility, and we need to help these guys get our residents and our people that are qualified and trained back to work.
So, excuse me, our options are to, what do you, anything you recommend?
I think we
This is
should.
the first for me.
Should we maybe write a letter of support, demanding action? And I don't know, what do you think, Derek? I mean, if it was, we're a union and we're Local 369, which I was a part of, that'd be easy, So I know you probably don't want to pick it, so we'll skip that.
Pick what?
Pick it.
Oh.
Pick it.
I see the truck down there on the news.
Right. So, I mean, is there something that we could do, Derek? I mean, it really, in my opinion, it is a public safety hazard. So, granted, there's a lot of things that go on there that nobody hears about, but, Selectman Bletzer's hearing it, I'm hearing it, we have, the president and the business agent here, and they're explaining it to us. It just, they need to do something about this.
I mean, where's OSHA? I mean, if you have people in a nuclear power plant that can't pass a drug test, I mean, that, I should think that's a violation as far as that goes, let alone the 60,000 plus people that live in this community.
Right.
We have a responsibility to them.
Right.
I think we should direct the town manager to create a letter of either support or support-demand that some of these things be answered to the town.
Be addressed.
And we gave council a little checklist earlier to give the town manager authority to put a few more checks on there, but these are urgent ones. This was just brought to our attention, and I think they have to answer us. If there's safety issues down there, I don't know what all the steps are, but we're going to give it a good look.
And if it was a complaint of not signing a contract, because I understand there is succession language in all of our contracts down there. So that is, although that's the legality of it, and that they have loads of money. So they're just going to fight and fight and fight, and that's...
I think the issue is, for us, and what we're asking of you, yeah, there is a safety concern. And David Noy said last night at the meeting, no, there's not a don't scream fire in a crowded theater. There is a safety issue. But there's a lockout. And again, we certainly don't need, we have attorneys that negotiate our collective bargaining agreements, and that is being addressed at the National Labor Relations Board right now about what happened. But this is an illegal lockout, and it's an illegal lockout of citizens of this community that you represent. So I think that's what's important. But yeah, there are safety issues, but there's also community issues. And I think, again, being the board, you have the ear of Holtec. I know they're not the easiest people to deal with, but I think you have some leverage in this. In cases like this, we're not, again, not asking you to get involved in a labor dispute. That's not what this is. We're asking you to support the families in this town who have been locked out of the plant, who are skilled, and have been at that plant for years and years, running it safely. And as I said last night, so we can all sleep at night, so as Vice Chairman Cavaco said, there's still a lot of components in that plant. If something went wrong, there's enough radiation in those pipes, and there's enough contamination in those pipes that could affect a lot of things. We don't need that. We need a skilled workforce. We need a safety commissioning. Just got a text on my phone as we were talking. Said one of the new workers tried to divert their drug test today. We have people down there that are still notifying us of what's going on, the safety issues, because they're concerned. They're concerned because they're down there.
Right.
And they're worried about what's happening. So it's a safety issue, but it's also a community issue. And again, we're asking for your support on this because I think that Holtec may listen to you. They're not answering our calls right now. They've drawn a hard line in the sand. It's the dumbest, or at least the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced in my 20 years as an organizer of the union. So never seen anything like it. We're here tonight just to ask for your help, and we're not gonna stop. We're gonna bring this to the highest levels, but it's very important that you knew what was going on. So again, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could we ask the town manager to set up a meeting? And whether it's myself and you, or have them come in front of the board. I mean, I don't want to wait another week, but our next meeting isn't until Tuesday. I mean, is that something that we could do, Derek?
Through the chair, you want a meeting with Holtec? We certainly could call one. Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that may be more beneficial than just sending a letter.
Okay. Or maybe do both, if they don't respond. So.
And then just to clarify one more thing, and like I said, I'm not trying to bog this down with contract language and things like that, but the original agreement was signed with CDI, Comprehensive Decommissioning International. They were being dissolved. It was corporate strategy. Nothing was going to change. HDI was the new contractor. Well, CDI, HDI, which is Holtec Decommissioning International, and Holtec are the same exact company. That's the bottom line here. The address is 1 Holtec Boulevard in Camden, New Jersey, for all three of these companies. So that's why people say, well, why didn't you sign the agreement? Why didn't you sign the agreement? Because we had an agreement. There's a successorship language in there that if there was to be a new agreement, it had to be agreed upon by the 3 internationals of the other unions. And if they wanted to add other craft, that's fine. But it's at the end of the contract. Or approach us or our international and say, hey, listen, this is the plan. We think there's a skill set over here that these guys could help out with. And we probably would have signed the contract. But they're bad actors. They're not being transparent. They've never been transparent with the town. And they kind of tell you what they want to hear to get what they want, and then they move on, and you're in the dust. And I've reached out to John Moylan. He's been down there for a long time, before it was even Holtec. He's the site vice president. I said, John, we have control, you and I, to fix this. I said, I will sign an agreement, whether it's a project labor agreement, to fix this for the local men and women of this community, because there are other plants involved. There's Indian Point in New York. There's Oyster Creek in New Jersey. There's Palisades in Michigan. And there's other things going on at those plants, but we have control to fix this here. I can sign a PLA or a project labor agreement to get those men and women back in there tomorrow. It isolates this work for Pilgrim only, and it doesn't have all the baggage that goes along with all these national agreements and things like that. So they're going to tell you one thing, but it's absolutely not the case. If you want me to speak at that meeting, I'm happy to come and answer any questions whenever you guys want. And I'd like to forward you the email that I wrote to the NDCAP, just so you guys have a little more background on it. And if I could get your emails, I'll send that off to you guys so you have some paperwork on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the public comment? Okay, we're going to move on to licenses and administrative notes. One-day wine and malt licenses for Mayflower Brewing Company from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. for a beer garden. On Sundays, 5/29/22, 6/5/22, 6/12/22, 6/19/22, 6/26/22, 7/3/22, 7/10/22, 7/17/22, 7/24/22, 7/31/22, 8/7/22, 8/14/22, 8/21/22, 10/10/22, 5/30/22, and 9/5/22.
I think you forgot a line.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I did. 9/4/20, I'm sorry, 9/4/22, 9/11/22, 9/18/22, 9/25, 10/2, 10/9. That should be all of them.
Motion
you.
to approve.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. MAP Promotions, 10 Pimental Way, Michelle Palveri is requesting a one-day wine and malt license for 4/2/22 from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. for a Cage Titans 52 event at Memorial Hall.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Amplified music permit, new, Mayflower Brewing Company, from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. for a beer garden at the Pine Hills on the following dates: Sundays, 5/29, 6/5, 6/12, 6/19, 6/26, 7/3, 7/10, 7/17, 7/24, 7/31, 8/7, 8/14, 8/21, 8/28, 9/4, 9/11, 9/18, 9/25, 10/2, 10/9, 5/30, 9/5, and 10/10, all of 2022.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Seasonal liquor renewals, Pinewood Lodge, doing business as Pinewood Lodge. Albert Sunders, manager. request for the following license in conjunction with their liquor renewal. Common victualers, comprehensive entertainment licenses, Group 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Motion?
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Sandy Pond Golf Incorporated, doing business as Atlantic Country Club, is requesting a common victuals license, comprehensive entertainment, Group 1, early Sunday openings.
Motion?
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Double C Incorporated, doing business as Campies, request renewal of the following license in conjunction with their liquor renewal, Comprehensive entertainment, Groups 1, 2, 3, Sunday entertainment, TV, dancing, live entertainment, and early Sunday opening.
Motion?
So moved. Second?
Second, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Kevin J. Aragon, doing business as Kevin's Clubhouse, is a request for the common victualers license.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Pillory Pub LLC, request a renewal for the following license in conjunction with the liquor renewal. Common victualler, comprehensive groups 1, and comprehensive entertainment, groups 1 and 3.
Motion?
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Stack Shack, doing business as Stack Shack. Early Sunday sales, 10 a.m., comprehensive entertainment, groups 1, 3, radio, live entertainment, outdoor amplified music for a periodic entertainment no later than 10, is that PM, I'm assuming? Okay,
Motion?
just checking. Second? Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Seasonal renewal certificates for the ABC. ABC requests a list of licenses disapproved and not submitted for 2021 seasonal renewal. At this time, there are no licenses that fall in this category. And we have administrative notes.
I'd like to move them as a group, unless anyone has a question.
Second, discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Committee liaison reports. Designee updates. Old business.
I'll do old business.
Mrs. Cavaco.
Sorry. Old business. So some of the things that have been brought up in the past are about bathrooms open up, hopefully longer than just a few months. I know the town hall bathroom and the Maritime Center. If you could get an estimate of what that would cost us to open those year-round, so we can make a decision whether we should hire someone or contract it or, do whatever it is we can. But I think the need for them is much stronger than it has been. A lot more people are outside, but that has been a topic of conversation as of late. Also, old business is the White Horse Beach bathroom trailer. I do believe Mr. Beater has a proposal, if you could just get that as well. And I got some new business, but go ahead.
Anyone else have old business? Letters? New business?
I'll do some new business. One of the things that Chairman Quintal and myself have attended some of the caucuses, and this seems to be the age of an immense amount of misinformation. And it was, I think it worked out really well when we attended these caucuses, because as selectmen, we were able to correct some of this misinformation, but I also feel as a board that we should probably create some type of policy that there are 5 of us, there's 18 precincts, and that, you know, we should all share in the glory of town meeting caucuses and have a select board representative at each one of them. I think it's important, like I said, the information that we had and we were able to correct was really important, and I think we should be able to do that and attend these caucuses. So I don't know if it's a policy or if it's a suggestion, or if you just want to try to figure it out and have it as a discussion amongst the board and put it on the agenda, however you want to do it. I just think it's important.
Comments from the board?
It's a good suggestion.
It's a good suggestion. Mr. Helm?
It's a good suggestion, but I do think that it should require some discussion of the board exactly what the parameters of our participation is. Having been on the Finance Committee, okay, members of the Finance Committee go to represent the Finance Committee because they vote on these just like we do. The concept with members of the Finance Committee that they are there to respond when asked. They are not there to present. They are not there to correct. They are there to advise when asked. And it's specific, another specific is that you are there to represent the Finance Committee, not your own personal opinions on a warrant article, unless asked. For instance, times where, Harry, why did you vote no? And then I would ask. I do think that I like the idea. I think we need to discuss what our parameters of participation would be.
That's fine. We can make it an agenda item.
Yeah, make an agenda item. That would, I'd be more comfortable with that, but I like the idea.
Okay. Any more comments?
I have one more thing.
That's it. Go ahead.
I know I was missed when I wasn't here with all this new business kind of stuff. So I kind of wanted, after previous chairman Tavares got up and spoke, I'm a little perplexed because, first of all, this is the venue to have the discussion of all these new things coming around. The process that we approved was just that. It was the process. It wasn't about a horse track. It wasn't about any kind of other end result in what we discussed. It was the process. And I want people to be clear that that's what that motion was intended. Now, granted, yes, we need a lot more information, and it is years away, but I want to be clear that people understand that we were supporting the process to gather this information, and not supporting what an end use would be for the property. So that's all for me.
Mr. Chairman, real quick.
Mr. Blitzer?
I'd like to echo what Betty said. Same thing. I didn't vote for a racetrack tonight. That wasn't what my vote was. My vote was for them to get approval from us to go forward and talk to the state to get more information and then come back to us, bring us more information. So that's what that was about tonight. It was informational, but they need approval to move forward. That's how I saw it. That's how I interpreted what happened tonight. So for Mr. Tavares come up here and say what he said tonight, I thought was out of line. So, because none of us have that much information, but we're not going to get any more information unless we let them go further in the process. And I'm going to tell you right now, for the last 10 years, I don't know how much economic development happened under his watch. So we need to explore any any opportunities for economic development. Obviously, we get boards. We get zoning boards that have to do their work. We get the planning board that has to do their work. If it gets approved, they have to get through the boards. So that's all. That's all I'll say on that. So thank you.
Mr. Flaherty, and then Mr. Howe.
We're running out of microphones. I think Harry's got the only one that's got green.
Here you go.
Thanks. Thank you. I would like to make a motion that the Select Board place a non-binding question on the May ballot asking, do you support a development project that includes thoroughbred racing and gambling in Plymouth?
I'll second for discussion.
Mr. Blitzer.
I don't think we have enough information to put it on as a non-binding question on the ballot, because we don't know what they're going to come back to us with. So we don't have enough information yet to put it on, so I'd vote against that.
We know their proposal is for a thoroughbred racetrack that includes gambling. They asked for a letter of support to go forward with the process to get the state licensing for gambling in a thoroughbred racetrack. That's what their proposal is. That's what the letter of support was endorsing to go through that process. So I believe if 1 hour is enough time for this board to decide that they want to support that, that's all the time I had to decide. I think 6 weeks is enough time for our residents to make a decision if they support this concept. Doesn't exclude any other, or even mention any other topics of development there, just that one. So respectfully, I think 6 weeks is enough time for our residents if 1 hour is enough time for this board.
I have to agree with Charlie. I have no problem with non-binding questions, as we all know. So, and I'd be more than happy to support it when we have the information, because you keep saying it's going to be a racetrack. We don't know it's going to be a racetrack. We don't know that. They have to go through, first of all, they don't know if they're going to get anything from the state, if they're going to get licensed or go to the gaming commission or whatever it is that they have to do. So it may not be a racetrack. Maybe it's just going to be a sports venue. Maybe it's just going to be a concert venue. So I don't think there's enough information to put a non-binding question on the ballot. I don't think we have enough time to put a non-binding question on the ballot. I think there are time constraints. I'm not sure what they are. But I just, like I said, I think there's, I mean, my whole thing was the process. I want information. I want to be able to give our residents every single bit of information. I want them to be able to say to us, we didn't get approval from the state, the soil isn't good enough for horses, we don't have the climate, we don't have this, there's too many environmental issues. I want the details before we move forward. But getting the support from us for them to get those details was what that was about. So maybe I misunderstood it wrong.
I can answer the timing, though, real quick. It's 35 days to put a non-binding question on, so that would be somewhere around April 15th or 16th we'd have to put it on. And so there's plenty of time to accomplish that.
Harry?
Well, a few things, and before I forget, I would be remiss in just reminding all members of the board, when a resident comes in front of us in public comment, they are never out of line. They're a resident of the town of Plymouth, and they have a right to express their opinion on whatever's going on in the town and what we do as a board. So, just in case I forgot to say that. It's very difficult, just as it was really difficult to support the motion to move ahead with a letter of support at 9:25 at night on a Tuesday night after a very long day, and really consider what could be a very valid suggestion or motion by Mr. Flaherty. And my own druthers would be to discuss this at next Tuesday's meeting as an agenda item. It would give the time for the people from Keeneland to actually give us a good presentation, which, by the way, they did not tonight. Okay, that was not really a presentation in my book. I've run a lot of major presentations in publishing in New York, and they, at the very initial stages, they had a lot more substance than what we got tonight. So it would give them time to do it. Tough for me to vote yes on that tonight, although I think that it's an idea worth considering, simply because, once again, voting yes on it tonight without really considering the ramifications and the information would be pretty tough for me to do.
All right. So, that being said, all those in favor? Mr. Flaherty in favor, 4 in opposition. And, Harry, I was hearing what you said about another presentation, and I'm saying this only, let me reach out to them and see when they can come back, because I do know, for example, Vince is the name you heard, and I don't have his last name, I'll remember it. He's in Mexico, I believe, at the time. So that's why he wasn't here tonight, and that's why we had him Friday, and it was important to meet with what we did, and that's why we did what we did. But I'm sure they're more than happy to come back, and I will check with them and let you know if that's okay. All right? Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Accepted. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening, what's left of it, a nice week, and keep in your thoughts and your prayers the people of Ukraine. Thank you.